Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my co-host Tom. Just the two of us tonight. Tom, welcome to actually being back on the show regularly.
Thanks. Hello, friends. You know, it's funny. My wife, not so impressed. She's like, "What do you mean you have another show?"
Sure.
She's like, "You've been on every show for the last month." Yeah,
Mhm.
well, that used to happen more regularly than it does now.
Yeah, you used to be
and
on every show for many years.
That's weird. It's just weird. It's hard to even conceptualize that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here. Hey, friends. Having you've been watching a bunch of Ted Lasso, having a Roy day. You know how it is. It
I don't
happens.
know what that means, but okay.
Oh man, have you never seen Ted Lasso?
No, I don't have Apple Plus.
Oh
and I
man,
refuse to get it.
Shame on you, Vince. Come on,
It's
folks.
fine.
Tell him in the comments how amazing Ted Lasso is.
I'm sure it's an amazing show. I've heard nothing but stellar reviews from everybody who's ever watched it. I don't care. Put it on something I own. I'm not getting more streaming services. I have a limit. Sorry, this is it, folks.
Hey, hit me up. Mm-hmm. We'll see if we can make something happen.
Sure, see what we can do. At any rate, tonight we will not be. This isn't Vince and Tom talk pop culture, although that should be a show sometime. Just Vince and Tom talk about other pop culture related things that aren't Warhammer.
Just stupid things, yes.
Mm-hmm, yeah. But no, tonight we're going to talk about New Year, New Army. We're going to talk about basically the strategies. How do you collect a new army? We're going to rank all of the armies with on a grid of how easy they are to start and collect and get painted and on the table. Okay, so it's going to be a good time. But of course, first, the news.
We have a rumor engine.
We don't. Well, I knew I was going to trick you.
I like it was a gamble. I knew that normally I can buy time by being like rumor engine as I pull up the news. That didn't happen today. So hey, guess what? We don't have a rumor engine. I was fooling you, Vince.
You got me.
How about that miniature? The unsurprising results of miniature of the year.
Let's talk about it. I'm here for it. Now this I have pictures for. Okay, let's get into it. Third place, Commander Farsight. Okay. It's fine. It's a Tau model. It's fine. I've built and painted this model.
Yep.
It's a fine model. Second place, Angron. Perfectly nice. I've built and painted this model. He's okay. He's a big.
First place was Lionel Johnson. It wasn't.
Third place. We're going in order, Tom. Third, second, then first.
Oh, sorry. I just assumed we started at first.
No.
Rather than because they start at 10th.
Who starts at first? When you award things, you start at the third place and then you work your way up.
But there's a 10th place. They did all the way out to 10th in the article.
No, I started at third because the other ones don't matter. They're all honorable mentions. Those weren't necessarily in stacked order, but I'm making a point. Third place. Okay. Commander Farsight. Okay. Second place, a named Bloodthirster, effectively. Right? Angron. Okay.
Yeah.
First place.
Yes. Everything is 40K. Got it. I understand your point. Yes, I know where you're going here. Yes. Everything's still 40K.
We could have gotten there organically, Tom, but fine. That's okay. Yes, we didn't even make it into the top 3 this year. That's how rough it was. We made it I
don't know. Angron could be a Bloodthirster, couldn't he? Does he have any type bits on him?
A little bit, but it's nothing like that egregious. I used him as a Bloodthirster for my army. The biggest problem is he comes on a bigger base normally, but you can rebase him. You can fit him onto a normal Bloodthirster base. So, and I did, and he is. So there you go. We had some honorable mentions, of course, because they had to. They didn't say those were actually in order. And I think they were just throwing a bone to AOS people, but who knows? They were the ones that they should have been. Talia, was up there.
Your Marshal wasn't what?
He was not, but I never thought. That was always throwing good money after bad, right?
Sure.
I'm not just voting third party there. I'm voting for the third party local write-in candidate, right?
Indeed.
Because that's that's a piece for sort of aficionados, not for the masses, right?
You mean that piece is for actual miniature painters? like
people
professional painters
with refined tastes. Yes,
who are like looking
I'm
for
make
like
it more
the
elite
composition.
than what you're saying, Tom.
Yeah, it's not a popularity contest. It's for those looking for composition.
Yeah, like this is
in the sculpt.
Lionel Johnson is your latest Marvel movie. It's great. There's nothing wrong with it. It's good. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
That guy is like the Witch. Like it's not gonna bring home the box office numbers, but it's an incredible piece of art. Anyways, both are good. I like both existing. At any rate, yeah, the Lion's a cool guy. So yeah, we made then the Nurgle Harbinger, of course, was also in there. But yes, we did not have quite a lot of options. Jamie Lang says, "In our hearts, ale chugging cannon guy from the new canon is clearly first place." Very nice. Yep. So I mean, this dude is pretty classic. He looks like the guy from Game of Thrones, Charles Dance. Yeah. Just so I'm not a complete jerk. And just like I should insult, award-winning actor of many years and lots of
so you're saying that
projects, Charles Dance.
So
Mr. The Game is on himself. What's that?
This should you're saying the actor who played I'm literally rewatching it right now and I completely blanked.
I'm just gonna let you get here.
I know. I appreciate that.
It starts with a T.
Tywin?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we're on the same page. That's who I thought. That's who I thought we were talking about. What I was gonna say is,
yes, man, it's the dad. It's obviously him.
This is clearly Tywin, and man, if he was painted in red and gold, it would be literally Tywin.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes, Charles Dance, the name of the actor. At any rate,
I'm not cultured like that. That guy from Game of Thrones.
Sure, it's fine. At any rate, sad that we couldn't even make it in the top 3. And look, in my opinion, all these 40K models were fine. They're fine. But there's no way Talia isn't better than Farsight and Angron at minimum. If you want to say this guy is the height of Space Marine design, right? He's the greatest Space Marine in history, fine. That's okay. This is a very elegant model with a lot of really nice detail and nice dynamism in the pose and stuff like that. So there is things going on here. And I know, no offense to Darren, who I'm pretty sure sculpted Angron. But nah, Talia's better. That's just where I'm living. Sorry, Darren.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And to be clear, that's who I voted for.
Sure.
So, Talia had my vote.
Yeah, sure. All right. So, what's next?
Yeah, so we had new store anniversary models. Womp, womp, womp.
Yeah,
You'd think I'd be so excited. You'd think that I'd be like, we got one, folks. We got a new Fire Slayer sculpt.
Mm-hmm. But this is bad.
I mean, it's a Rune Smiter, and I don't hate it.
I hate
it. It's better than normal Rune Smiter, which it's the model that you see that stands like this.
I understand.
Right? All Rune Smiters are this. Ironically, I converted a Rune Smiter in almost the same pose as this guy from one of those Silver Tower heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had a ton of those. That said, he's not terrible. He's fine.
I really hate his helmet and his face. I think he looks bad. I think the back of him is the best part, which is fine. I guess that's what you're staring at.
I think the cloak. The cloak
really
is
good.
the best part.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah, the cloak is the best part. The fact that he actually has a mustache to go with his beard, rather than just all the chin
stuff. It's not the Amish mustache, or Amish beard. Yeah.
Yeah, Amish beard. I mean, he's fine.
Sure.
You know what we needed? Another foot hero, Fire Slayer. Even better. It's not just another foot hero. It's an alternate sculpt foot hero. That's what we needed.
Hey, Fire Slayer. Just last week, people were saying, are they going to squat Fire Slayers? And now look, you're the store anniversary model. You're here to stay, baby. There you go.
Yep.
Sure. I have much the same reaction. I do not care. All right. What's next?
I mean, I'll still buy them, but it's fine.
Sure. I will not.
I
also think the talent person is pretty dumb for what
Old World is here. I actually thought about doing a Lumineth conversion from that town.
Yeah, if you put I could see that legitimately. That's fine. I just didn't like the face, honestly.
Yep.
All right, Old World pre-order coming this Saturday. Next week's show will be Old World. We'll be covering. I mean, there's so much to cover. It's going to be way more than one show.
I am not here.
You're not here for it. No, I'm.
That's what you get, Tyler. Enjoy.
No, Tyler doesn't have it either. I've called in a hit squad for this.
Okay.
So at any rate, yeah, it's, I've got here the Bretonnian box set, the contents of it, right? So we've already kind of talked about these in some past things, but you've got this box set, you've got the books that are the, and this comes with the big core book. Here's the Tomb King one, by the way, just for clarity to knock it all out. So you have the 2 combined armies books, the Forces of Fantasy good guys and the Ravening Hordes bad guys. You have the 2 softback encyclopedias, or whatever they're called, arcane encyclopedias, that are like little expansions for the armies, which have alternate army builds in them and stuff like that. More story-based kind of expansions for each army. But all the army rules you can play out of the just base index book, which will be, as far as I understand, the book. Like, there's no, that's it. That's the book. It's not like this is a placeholder for some later battle tome or something. Like, this is the book. And then the strategy is to use the expansionopedias, which I'm a fan of. I have to say, I actually really like that release model as far as books and armies go. Quite a lot.
The Bretonnian one?
No, the concept of like all of the good guys' armies, are in one book. Okay. All the good guys. All of the bad guys' armies are in one book. Okay?
Yep.
And then from there, you have little expandopedias. Now, I will say it's a lot easier to do when you're dealing with like 9 armies or whatever they're launching with, right? Some small number versus 24. Okay.
Well, you would, instead of doing 2 books, you would just do 4 books, right?
Sure.
Instead of doing the Ravening Hordes.
It would be one for each alliance. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, one for each Grand Alliance.
Which makes it much easier. But still, I like this release model. Like, legitimately, I really do. I think that's actually a great choice of having those like books. I would like it better if the expansion books just completely like had everything you needed and could like tear out the stuff in the main book with all its rules, but I don't know if that's what they'll do or not. So
yeah,
we'll see. So at any rate, they also, talked about all of the stuff going on pre-order as well. So Tom, you'll be happy to know that all of the
I've already looked at the price sheets. Yep. Like I already looked at all the price sheets for all the units.
Sure.
Which, it's like, I think going $80 for a unit of Tomb Guard is a bold choice, GW. Sure, let me know how that goes. And they're probably going to sell out anyways, because it's a great.
Well, I would imagine they're not making a lot, so that's the answer.
Right. What I will say is this: yes, the dice are expensive, but I may have ordered 2 sets of Bretonnian dice for my Flesh Eater Courts. So,
okay, fair enough.
So because they're beautiful. Yeah, it's so funny. I was like super down on this product, and I was sitting there and like looking at the release stuff, and I was like, but I do have an entire army of High Elves and an entire army of Tomb Kings square base currently.
Yeah. And yes, as Hades and Manzak pointed out, the Tomb Guard is 20 models in the box.
It's not 10. Is it 20 models? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I feel a little bit better about that. If that's 20 for $80,
yeah,
pretty good deal.
It's fine.
Because I think they'll have.
Now they are very old models. 20. Yeah, 20 ancient models. Yeah, Artorias Rex. Like literally look. We're not going to get away from this, and it's going to just color every discussion of the old world. Okay. Like I know a lot of people are excited. I don't want to yuck your yum. I know I'm often a sarcastic jerk about this. I think that many of the new models exempting one model that they've made, just this one model. I can't say which one it is. It might be on screen right now. But this, other than this one model from the new models, I think they honestly did a great job of the sculpt so far.
Okay.
But they are.
So you just don't like that one.
This one new thing is so god awful. It's hard to even conceptualize. But the fact that so much of this game is going to be run on ancient models, that means most people just won't buy much, is really shocking to me, and like really depressing when you put one of the new models up against one of the old models. You hold up like the new Tomb King or something next to one of these goofball old pumpkin-headed giant-fisted skeletons, and it's just like, it's comical. I mean, it's comical.
Yeah, skeletons like the random 20-year-old skeletons that you were painting last week.
Like the random 20-year-old skeletons I was painting last week. Yes, correct.
From your old collection. Yeah.
From my old collection. These are existing skeletons I've had since their release. That is right. That's right. In 2004, January, when I bought them originally. And here they are being released again exactly 20 years later. Almost to the same week. So on their 20th anniversary of original production, they get re-released. That's very exciting for them.
Neat.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Hades said, I'd like to submit a formal complaint. They decided not to refresh, etc., etc. Dude is a combo of metal and plastic, and like, why? He's so iconic.
Yep. I have one in my closet too.
Sure, but like the problem here is that like these old models just certainly color your perception of the thing. Now, to hit some points from to hit some points from the chat here. The Tomb Guard kit is from 8th edition. Yeah, I think that's correct. The Tomb Guard of 2011.
Yeah, Tomb Guard, Tomb Guard, and
the Sphinxes and the Snake Riders are all 2011.
The Stalkers. Yeah, they're all 2011. Ththose are all like 13-year-old kits. Which,
everything else is from 2000.
Those are great kits.
Sure, they're fine.
No,
like if you were going to model the Sphinx today, you wouldn't model it anything like what the Sphinx is. It's fine.
It's very.
The Sphinx on the inside of its legs isn't finished. The bracers don't go all the way around. It's very it's very static. There's no dynamism to the model. It's just sitting there with like one paw up in the air. Like all of that kind of stuff. Even the 2011 ones really show their age. But like the 2004 ones are rough. Probably the best out of the line is the Snake Riders and the Snakes. Those guys are actually quite dynamic.
I agree with that. And again, like the Tomb Guard, like I've built some of those recently, and they're not terrible. Their headpieces are delightful. Their weapons are like wonderfully detailed. When you they can be postured in a way that they don't look like rigid and robotic, right? They look like they have some of the bone structure of what you would see in the later skeleton design, right? Like you see some of that like shambliness of them.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. That's what I would say. I don't know.
Sure. But at any rate, I mean, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to do a show. We'll probably focus on the main game for the first show, and then we'll intersperse some other shows and talk about stuff like armies and things like that. So, Tom, you may be still locked into an old world show nonetheless.
Nope.
Talking about Tomb Kings and Bretonnians or something.
Yeah, I'll talk about high elves. Like when you guys want to do high elves, I'll talk high elves.
Sure.
That's fine.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, to be honest, I may end up buying a couple boxes of Tomb Guard just because I may want to do like a conversion arm, right? Like that's the only thing that would actually sell me on that, because I think that the bits from Tomb Guard are gold, like plastic gold.
Sure.
Just almost every part of that model is fantastic.
Yeah, Manzak says, just be happy these kits were designed to be modular and dual kits, whereas AOS frowns on that. I don't know if I agree with that. Modular, I don't think means what you're saying it means, Manzak. Like, being a torso with a set of legs, 2 arms, and a head is not modular make. What it does make is people make a lot of bad decisions when they're putting their models together, because they end up having models that look like this. Like, sort of a store dummy that's been electrified. like a store mannequin, and that just has no actual, like just this no semblance of how a being would stand. Number one, and number two, dual kits are still very popular. I mean, the entire the Iron Jaws release was dual kits. The pig builds 3 pigs. The brutes build 2 different kinds of brutes. Right? They still do dual kits all the time and like dual kits. So I don't know about that. Like they're certainly less. I mean, I guess they're less modular in that you can't just like replace a different arm, but most of these you couldn't do that anyways because of the weird scaling and other issues with them because they're so goofball. But yes, like honestly, the right choice for like everything in this box, sadly, is just to go buy 3D prints or something. There are so many better skeletons on the market right now. Like it's not even close. Like I'm not trying, like it is what it is. You should not be using these skeletons. They're bad. Come on, let's be real here. Okay, that's
like I wouldn't paint him if they gave him to me.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, I agree. Someone wondering, the new Brett models are beautiful. Like the new Lord on Pegasus, the new damsels,
I like the new Tomb King. Like I love it.
Yeah, he's cool.
Tomb King, but yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All those guys, great. Like I said, the new stuff they've sculpted, good. All good, all very high quality sculpts.
Almost all good.
Almost.
There's
one standout model that's very, very, very bad.
Could it even be a set piece?
Could be the centerpiece of your entire stupid army. Okay, cool. Great. All right, let's I think that's all the news, right? That's all we got?
Yep.
All right. Let's go to some pick of the week. Tom, what do you got for everybody?
See, right now, I know what you're thinking, Vince. You're thinking Tom doesn't have anything. Tom has completely dropped the ball and has been unprepared. Mm-hmm. No, my friends, this is where I'm going to go off on a limb, and I'm going to spruik one of my eternal enemies, friend of the show, Caleb Walters. We talked last week about the magnet sticks that Tyler had.
Yeah, sure.
It's so funny. I just took them downstairs, so I can't actually show you.
Yeah.
But in light of that conversation, Caleb was like, "Hey, I have something to send you," and he sent me 2 sets of sticks that he is producing. He has an Etsy store, Dork Dom Gaming or Dork Dom Gaming, depending on how you read his his handle. And he has tons of like token boards and stuff like that. Like he has a Flesh Eater Quartz one, like a Delusions board with like Noble Deed points and stuff like that. So nice. Like all ready for the new stuff coming out. He has a bunch of sticks like on like a plate, and they're offset in such a way that you can actually like attach them together, and they add up to like one less than the inch of with the connection point. And so like you can make a variable of like a bunch of different measurements. And so I was super impressed with the product. And so I'm gonna spruik that. So Caleb is doing some good work for us. He also has some stuff on like Battle Tome Tactics cards, or like he has like a Slaanesh battle traits and all the battle traits and all the Slaanesh stuff and a depravity tracker chart and all that in these like tight little plastic thing. He has one for like Blood Tithe or Seraphon. So he has a bunch of different armies, a bunch of different tokens. Super, super cool. He's doing some great work. And so I want you all to check that out. So
very nice.
We'll have the link to it in the description below.
Very nice. Well, my shout out is going to be to Plastic Crack, the blog. You will find it linked below. He did his 2023 end of year awards, picking sort of the best of a bunch of categories from blogs and battle reports and all sorts of stuff. He was also either now I question Plastic Crack's decision making because he picked us as the best AOS coverage channel of the year. So 1, thank you. 2, it makes me question the rest of your decision making, but I am grateful. So that is linked down below. If you're looking for, cool bat rep channels, cool blogs, cool anything related to the world of wargaming and AOS, Plastic Crack, check it out. Linked down below. They are an awesome blog group, person, all of it. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Hey, Caleb's watching. Hey, what's up, Caleb? I'm gonna be getting some of them sticks from you, Caleb. I want you to know that. Okay. Okay. Well, I don't have. Okay, let me state here real quick. Caleb's will be linked below after the show. Tom doesn't send me his link in advance, as he knows he's supposed to do, so that I can link it in the show notes before we start. Tyler does, and so oftentimes Tyler's will be linked in the show notes because Tyler sends them to me early and is responsible. That's behind the scenes. That's how
I'm waiting on inspiration. And I was sitting here and I was like, Caleb. That's the person. That's the one who gets it. This week.
So you will find the link to Caleb's shop linked down below after the show. Once we stop and I'm able to edit the description. Okay. There you go.
Hey, I have to be on brand.
Indeed you do, Tom. You can't be anyone else but you. I know. All right. Let's turn to some hobby time. Tom, your entire workspace is covered in concrete dust. How you doing? You painting anything?
I'm so angry. Like,
Tom is having some work done on the outside of his house, which has led to dust coming inside his house, and he did not know this was going to happen, and so his entire hobby area and everything he was painting is now covered in a thick sheet of concrete dust.
Including all the models I was working on, which is not an insignificant number. It was.
May I suggest canned air? It seems like you're going to need it.
I'm going to have to, I think I'm going to have to, wash these guys, which I don't even know how you do that.
You just run them lightly under some mid-temperature water.
Yeah. Anyway, so, yes, it's funny. I've painted, I did all the skin and, base coated 4 or 5 of my colors on about 50 or 60. No, it's been more than that. Probably about 60 models or so. So making good progress this week. I didn't have any kids, so that's literally what I did for a majority of the week, was just worked on that. Give me another week or so and I'll be done with that army, or with that, those 1,000 points or 1,500 points. So, and it'll be what we're talking about this week, right? Which is new army, new year, new army. So
yeah, exactly.
I am embodying our topic this week.
Very good. That's a good point. Keith Rogers said, yes, put water on the concrete dust. That'll end well. You're not wrong there. That's not a good recipe.
Right?
That's why I said, I told him canned air. Canned air is the correct choice.
I know.
Take them, blow them off onto the space, and then once everything's up and you've removed it, don't blow in those space. You'll just tear everything everywhere. You take the model, you take it away, you air it, and then you set it in another safe place in a sealed container. And then once it's done, you need to vacuum your whole workspace.
Oh, I need to vacuum my entire basement, but thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, my hobby time. I am painting a thing that you'll see next week. How about that? That's what I'm painting. There we go. That's what I'm working on. I'm
something that is likely unreleased right yet.
I don't, but I will show it next week. Something that would be, I would be able to show then. Okay. So, but don't worry. It's fine. We'll get there. Okay. Very simple and quick hobby time for me. With that, let's move to our main topic. You mentioned it already, Tom. You segued well. Boom. New year, new army, question mark. So, Tom, let's talk about it. Here we go. It's January. People have resolutions. It's a thing. Do you make New Year's resolutions, Tom? Are you a New Year's resolutions person?
Historically, I haven't been. It's funny because I didn't try to do a New Year's resolution, but I've been wanting to implement some changes, and so coming into this holiday season, I began to implement those. So it wasn't a New Year thing, but it was just a like reflections, life changes type of thing.
Sure. Okay.
So yes and no.
Yes and no. Yeah, I'm more of a goals person than a resolutions. I don't like resolutions, but I'll often think about, so what are my goals over the coming year, right? And that sounds like it's kind of I'm splitting hairs there, but I do think there's a difference. Resolution feels like punitive, feels like you have to do the thing. I'm not saying I'm going to do the thing for sure. I'm saying like, hey, I'd like to get kind of in this area, right? These are the types of things I'd like to do. But I think at the beginning of the year, you often sit down and go, well, this is my chance to sort of refocus things. And one of the things I want to do this year, maybe it's a resolution, maybe it's just a general goal, maybe it's just an idea amorphously floating in your head, is oftentimes people go, all right, I'm going to make a new army, right? Dan says, I remember the year of no new army, Tom. Remember all the exceptions he made. Yeah, that was a great year. I did enjoy that too. So I think this is a pretty popular thing to do, to think about like, hey, do you want to paint an army this year? Is that a goal? A lot of people say I paint some number of miniatures, and oftentimes that part of the way they're going to get there is an army, right? And I think it's very tricky to pick your new army, especially if you're newer in the hobby. If you've been here a long time, if you've already got like 10, 12 armies, then, paint it, then okay, this probably isn't as much of a question for you. It's just do you want to do it or not? You know the road, you know the terrain, you're experienced. But I think you have to like weigh a lot of things. The cost of the thing, your interest in the thing, your passion for it, the complexity of painting it, all those kinds of stuff. And I think exactly how you pick it, plan it, execute it, and then actually carry through is the tricky part. I think that can often be very hard, right? So, to me, there is a lot of different things you have to consider when you're getting into a new army. But at the beginning of the year, let's just ask this question. What do you think about when you're thinking about doing a new army, Tom? What is it that draws you in and makes you want to say at the beginning of the year, I want to do an army? Is it just the fact that we always do team armies for the holy events? Or do you have other motivation?
No, it's funny that you ask this because there's like historically what I would do is I would make a decision for a new army at the beginning of the academic year, not at the beginning of the calendar year. So I like my new season would start in like August, September of the prior year. Normally it's like that's also at the tail end of a GHB is when the new army would kick in. And then I would do like 1,000, 1,500 points in the fall. I would do another 1,000 oftentimes going into like the January, February for the second teams event. Sure. Oftentimes I would do a similar or related army, like something that's overlapping, different models, different portion of the same army. And so by the time I would hit like the big contest season, so you get into like LVO, you get into Adepticon, all those big events, I would have a really like playable, like larger, nicely painted force. The irony is that this year I pivoted multiple times going into this teams event. And I just realized when I looked at it that like the factors that I deal with, and this is what led to all of the confusion.
Yeah.
One, I need to have an army that I enjoy the play style. Here's the deal. I was fully committed on trolls because it looked fun. I wanted something more simple. I wanted a lower model. So I was like, I'm doing trolls. And then I began to play with the play style. And I was like, I hate this play style. Like I hate big, dumb, push it forward, no movement tricks, no toys, no spells, no anything. Right? I can't do that. Like I couldn't run giants if I wanted to. Like that's just not something that I could do. And so,
well, at least like, you got a little more speed there, but sure.
Right. That's exactly right. And so like with trolls, I was like, okay, well, I can't do trolls. So then I jumped to Khorne, and I was like, oh, tons of movement tricks. It's great in the meta. I have a fun idea. And so it was I have my play style that I want. And I have an idea of something like a niche kind of weird army. Like I wanted to do the Dogs of Khorne, right? And so I was like, okay, I got
dogs.
it. I have
just say corn dogs.
I want to do corn dogs. My conceptual, like what I'm doing. And then I just didn't have a scheme.
Yep, you couldn't put together a paint scheme you liked.
And I had lots of different colors that I put on, but I wasn't able to like get the right combo of what I wanted. And so what ended up happening there is that all of it went on the shelf. Like I have a wonderful 1,000-point army, mostly built, that I was like, nope, and I scrapped because I didn't have a paint scheme. And I'm on a time frame, right? I had at that point I had like 8 weeks to knock out 1,500 points, and I was like, nope, I'm not gonna do it because I'm not gonna just do a stupid paint scheme. It has to be something that I've fallen in love with and that I really like and I really want to do. So scratch that. And then Flesh Eater Quartz book dropped. It had models that I already had.
Yep.
I knew how they built. I knew how they painted. Like I had already started priming, and I had an idea. I had an idea of what I wanted my skin color to be. I was going to be able to do some freehand, do some interesting stuff, but I knew it would be able to be fast. And that was a big thing as well, is especially for the first portion of the army, I wanted to be able to get on the table quickly. And so that was a big piece of it for me as well. And so for me, it's a combination of play style. It's a combination of right army composition. So it's not just play style, but the actual elements within the army. And it's also having a paint scheme that I can do that I love and that's not terrible.
Okay.
You know, the reason why is like, I think about something like your Ratcast. You love your Ratcast.
I do.
You are dragging your feet because you don't want to paint that Ratcast style armor on Ionis Cryptborn.
Yeah, sure.
Like, that's the only thing that's keeping you. I know you want to do it, but I also know that you don't want to touch that paint scheme ever again.
Yeah, correct. No, you're exactly right. Yeah, I mean, it's a nightmare of a paint scheme. Yeah. 100%. No, that's fair. And that's just my point, right? Is that there's so many things bouncing off of one another there. You've got to have a scheme that's compelling. By the way, I would take that even all the way down to basing. The number of times I've gotten like a good idea for an army but couldn't crack what I wanted to do with the bases, right? It has to play in a way I enjoy. I'll say that for sure. That is absolutely required. Like that you get an army. There's been a couple times where I had an army I thought was aesthetically pleasing, and then I played it a couple times and was like, oh, this is terrible. I don't like this at all. Right? Okay. And moreover, you have to even understand, where do you start? Like, this is a thing that you're just kind of assuming because you know how to build a list and what those and how to read a scroll and stuff like that and weigh what should be and shouldn't be there. But the challenge is that like you can just very easily run into we're gonna see Tom's new dog. There we go. Bring her up all the way. This is gonna be funny just to watch Tom struggle with a dog. There you go. There's Tom's dog. There's Tom's new dog. Dogs never look at the camera. I don't understand.
No.
Look at the camera, dog.
Yeah, this is a cousin of. This is a niece of one of yours, I believe.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Aspen, maybe. Yeah.
Probably. Yes, there you go. Hit like for the dog. Look at that dog's eyes looking at you right now. How could you not want to hit like? I mean, come on. Ridiculous. Yes, Tom got a dog from the same people we go through, and it's an adorable dog. It's very cute. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot to think about. That's the point. And then, by the way, it's very easy to lose steam halfway through, right? Like you gotta have something you want to play, you want to paint, you like the bases, you like everything, but then it's gonna motivate you to keep going. And you need to know what list you're starting with. What are you actually painting for? So there's a lot going on here. All right. Okay. So let's talk general hobby before we get to the new year. Tom, I know we said we don't make resolutions, but let's talk about some sort of hobby goals for 2023. 2024. Sorry, this year. This is the year. This is 2024 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you knew
it
that.
It is 2024.
I was testing you. You passed. All right. Okay. Noob said, so now Tom's models are all covered in concrete dust and dog hair. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get a golden. You'll never have a model without dog hair in it again. Okay. So, I see we're going to get visited over here. Your prompt of your dog, I have no doubt, has prompted this. Yeah. So.
Well, I have headphones on, so she can't hear
sure.
yours.
Hush.
All right, Lyra, come up here.
So Tom, quiet.
Yeah.
How's that?
There you go.
Here, look right here.
There you go.
Look up, Hoppy. Yes.
Chaos. Natalie
That's
said
what the
her
show
dog
is.
is barking at our dogs. Yeah, I'm sure that's true. This one can't keep herself quiet whenever she comes down here. This is now just a show about dogs.
Let's talk about dogs. All dogs are golden.
All dogs are golden.
Thank you for
Indeed.
sharing your puppers.
Absolutely. It's a very cute dog. All right. I love it here. Okay. Yes, hit like for all the dogs. Okay. All right. So, yeah, let's talk general hobby goals. You got any hobby goals for this year, Tom, for 2024? What are they?
I'm gonna paint a whole lot of flesh eater cards.
Okay.
And so not only for my army for this event, and for I'm probably gonna run them obviously this spring. I have a couple events coming up. A 1-dayers and I have a 2-dayer nearby. I think I might do it with teams with my son. Whether he's gonna flesh eater cards generally is his army, so. He'll likely run that this fall, and so the question is am I going to double with him on FEC, or are we going to do something? So,
okay, very nice.
And they're easy to paint, and so that's like a big win for me. Like that's like a really big win is being able to paint quickly. The one big question mark for me is honestly the new edition, and so like
sure,
as you know, like historically these years have been really bad years for me.
Yep.
Yep.
You don't do well with change.
I don't. And so when we have new editions, normally that lasts like 6 to 8 months moving into that edition. I don't do anything. Normally, like I paint very little, or I paint only very safe things, or I paint like board game pieces or whatever, or like the Warhammer Quest, games or whatever. That said, because I already know what I'm going to be doing with him for teams this fall, there's no reason not to paint it.
Right on. Is there anything else in the like you're getting all that painted, but is there anything like more general you're wanting to achieve this year? Like, are you looking? What I mean by that is like, is there anything in the hobby you want to achieve? You know what I mean? Like, award-wise at a tournament.
Yeah, I'm thinking
something
about it.
Like that.
No, I like it's so funny. Like I've actually dialed back my push.
Okay.
For awards. It's just I don't feel like I have anything I need to prove. And so it's not something that I'm generally pushing for. That said, I'm pushing to go to more events this year.
Okay.
I dialed back events quite a bit this last year. And so I'm looking to double down. My work schedule has a recurrent like travel week, Adepticon week now every year, which is a real problem for me. And so I'm trying to it's my game 2 years or so, and so I'm trying to reformulate it in such a way that I can make something different happen.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't go to Adepticon again, you're going to miss all the late night drafting and commander play. So it's a lot of fun.
I know I'm super it's heartbreaking, truly. I would love to be there. But I think so I'm trying to figure out what different events I want to do. And so that's been I want to do more events, and I want to do different events than what I've been doing. So
okay.
So that's one of my my larger hobby goals. The other thing that I've been doing pretty militantly for the last year, and I'm going to continue to lean into, is I'm trying to build basically everything I have.
You just actually like get it at least assembled. So if you want to paint it, that doesn't become a hurdle, right?
Yep.
Just have it.
Well,
because it's easy to go, well, I would paint this, but I don't want to put it together. I don't want to deal with the assembly.
It's not just that, because I want to be able to play it too. Like I want to be like, whether it's painted or not, I want to be able to put it on the table.
Sure.
With my son, because like he's wanting to play more, and so the consequence is that I want to play lots of different armies, and I want to diversify. And the best way to do that is to already have it built, pull it out of a shelf, and put it on the table.
Yep.
And so I'm like rapidly building armies between the corn stuff that I just did and all that, just putting things together, and then as well like basing, priming, and zenithal. So like most things I put in are at least like zenithal prime, so they don't look utterly terrible on the table.
Sure. Basically three colors: black, gray, white. You're good to go.
Black, gray, white. Exactly. So I say all that to say that's another thing that I've been doing, is trying to just increase my truly playable armies.
Okay. Yeah, I got a lot of hobby resolutions this year. A lot of goals I want to achieve. I've got a video that's going to be coming out here soon that's going to talk about it in more detail. But I definitely want to go to Monte this year, to Monte San Savino in November. So go over to Italy. I want to put together a lot more display pieces. There's things I want to work on, and pieces that I want to continue to push myself on at a competition display level, as far as sort of especially larger scale stuff. But I also really want to make an army, and so I mean that's my next slide. Let's just jump right into it. What's our new army plans? I think you already talked about it, because you want to make a Flesh Eater Quartz army, right? Let me ask you another question. Okay.
Okay.
What army would come out? What new army would come out? This could be a complete refresh of an existing army, or it could be a totally new army. Okay. What would release that you would just like sweep the table and be like, this right now, this? Is there anything like that within the realm of sort of possibility of AOS that you think would completely get you? Like the obvious candidates: Chaos Dwarves, right? Malarians, Dark Elves, or they're the Umbraneth, or whatever you'd want to call them, right? Goblin Sky Pirates, that, like, those kinds of things. You can be as wild as possible. Kurnothi. Thank you, Artorias Rex. Yeah, Kurnothi.
Things that would be immediate sweeps for me. An Order of Aesir.
Okay.
Like an all witch
Like
hunters.
If they did a cities expansion and it was all witch hunters and the holy sort of order.
War altars, and all the religious elements. That would be a sweep for me. For sure. That would be the one thing that would get me. If it was all like witch huntery stuff, I would be like basically Mordheim on the like I would be okay with like the Wild Hunt, dogs and
if the old world does a Mordheim release in the holidays, you picking up that box set? You picking that up?
Yeah, okay. That would be a sweep.
If Mordheim it came box with the original models.
Yep. Yeah.
Some humans and like some of the Night Runner Skaven.
Yep, the monkey rats.
Monkey Skaven, yeah.
I mean, I have all of those models still, and sure. I would still sweep for it, right? I would do to do all of it, both the models and the terrain, because I would assume that it would be some sweet as like plastic, interchangeable like houses and stuff like that.
Sure, you're saying they wouldn't just throw in the like 4 cardboard houses you got in the original one?
No. And there were more than 4, by the way. I have all those in a box downstairs as well. No, so Mordheim would be a sweep for me. Order of Aesir would be an automatic. Things that I would pause and think long and hard about would be a refresh of Spiderfang.
Sure.
If they did a refresh of Spiderfang, I would think long about that. Because I have a lot of bits for, like, remember the Spiderling Those weird Grot models.
Yeah, yeah.
I have like 120 of those unbuilt and ready for conversion.
Like,
so
my guess would be you have the most of that particular model in the world, of any human being in the world.
Maybe. I have between 120 and 150 of those models.
Of the little spiderlings from Silver Tower. Yes. Like, what other human is as insane as you and has collected that amount of those extremely particularly weird model?
My intent was to use them as conversions for like shooters and stabbers, like to cut off the weapons and put like shields or in whatever, and because they have like the models have bows and weapons and stuff, so it would be a really easy conversion, and then to basically do a gloom spite all spider, and so I could do shooters and stabbers with those. And so if I had refreshed spider models, I would think I would do that. And yes, Tristan, they do indeed come in 2 parts, and they are unbuilt. I would give a long, hard look towards Malarian, especially if they integrated into Daughters.
Okay. Like you'd want it to be part of the existing Daughters force.
If it was part of the existing Daughters force, where they like like the Shadow Legions or something like that, where it would be Daughters of Cain and this Umbraneth as like a combined book, I would seriously consider that. If it's an entirely new range, I would need to take it in and see if I really want to make that dip, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd always thought for sure that Malarian's Force would just be its own thing. And I'm still saying that's probably entirely possible. But at the same time, when we discussed it on a show recently, it came up, it was like, well, I would see Tyrion as an expansion of the Teklian forces because it's all Lumineth. For some reason, I just don't see Malarian and Morathi working together so peaceably as the twins, right? But that being said, I think I've switched over to assume it's like a straight 50-50 shot that they either do it as its own force eventually or do it as an expansion to Morathi's forces.
Yeah, like I could imagine a world where we get like Malarian on his own, Morathi on her own, or combined arms force.
Yeah, like you can't have both of the rule should be you can't have both Malarian and Morathi in the same army, right?
Yep.
Like only one of them.
And like, but I could see out like an Auric Warclans situation, right? Where it's like where they can be on their own or they can be combined. If they did that, I think I would be more inclined. And then the other one that would certainly catch my imagination is if they did like an elemental destruction force. Like that's something that like I could get super into, like fire elementals and earth and these like earthkin or whatever. Like I could do something that like that's just strange and new and weird like that. Yeah. There's a chance that I might just jump on and sweep the table for that.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll openly admit, obviously the number one thing. I want to paint a new army this year, like straight up.
Yeah, like you're going to do Skapen. Like we know you're going to do.
Yeah, but hold on, I want to talk about this first. I didn't really paint an army last year, okay? Like in 2023. Like I finished a few models, I think, for my Ratcast, but I did not actually paint an army all year. Which is the first year in quite a while I haven't painted an army, right? And like I added to a bunch of armies. It's not that I sat here and didn't paint. I added a bunch of things to a bunch of armies. I added to my Flesh Eaters over the course of the year. I added to my Slaanesh over the course of the year. I added to my Sons of Behemoth over the course of the year, to my Ironjaws over the course of the year, right? Like there was lots of expansions of existing forces that I enjoy playing, yeah?
Yep.
But I didn't actually paint a new army. And when I was thinking about that at the end of the year, it honestly made me kind of sad, okay? Because I really like army painting. I think it's very fun. I think I just often have gotten myself into a habit recently of picking schemes that kill my urge to finish the army.
Sure.
Whereas, a good example of where this didn't happen, okay? Like I'm just reflecting on the kind of the pitfalls. This is kind of a little pre-talk about the pitfalls. When I did my Cities of Sigmar conversion army, so the second Cities army that I did that I have to throw in the bin because I have a bunch of units that are no longer usable.
Yep. Are you talking about your Whirlwind's Edge?
Yeah, Whirlwind's Edge. Yeah, exactly. My with all the 40K bits and terrain bits and custom bits and stuff like that. That was a really, really, really fun army to do. I really loved doing that army because everything was a conversion and everything was unique. It had a lot of single models. It was like very special, and it was also a lot of like vehicle and scale model type stuff, so that always made it kind of a fun process, because like rusting and weathering things and streaking things is just kind of fun. And so even though it was certainly a complicated paint job, it was fun, and I never got burnt out on anything, right? Whereas like the Ratcast was such a complicated scheme and took so long that, like, yes, I'm very happy and very proud of the army. It's certainly the best army I've ever painted looks wise, right? But it's so complicated and so time consuming that it just ended up being like, I don't ever want to paint another one of those models again. That's what it comes down to. I just don't.
And it's so opposite to like my Fire Slayer / KO / Cities Duerden scheme, right?
Yeah.
Like I have a scheme that I love so much that literally spans 3 Grand Allegiance books.
Yep.
And like I could tomorrow just grab any models from any of those ranges and paint them up in the scheme and enjoy every minute of it.
Sure. Yeah, and that's just it, right? Like, so I think there's a line we're going to have to talk about here when we get into the pitfalls of it's very easy to get burnt out. It's very easy to pick something that seems like a good idea at first, and it's just really hard to finish. And that doesn't necessarily mean quality. It means spending time doing the right things, right? To where you're actually going to have an impact. So, okay.
Doing the hobby work that you enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I want to make a new army, and obviously number one on that list, yes, you already said it, is Skaven, right? When the Skaven refresh happens with 4th, as we have predicted, I'm sure it's going to happen. I don't know it's going to happen, but I've planted a flag, and I'm now manifesting it into reality. When that occurs, I mean, that's my army, right?
Yep.
Now, that's a heck of an army. And like talking about picking a paint scheme, Skaven, this will be the 3rd time really that I would have been doing a Skaven army from scratch, basically, because I won't be able to use anything I've painted before, because basically everything I've ever painted before for my Skaven, exempting a few characters here and there, is crap. Okay. And I wouldn't accept it in an army right now. And so that's a challenge. I have maybe like 10 models I would actually use in a real force now, right?
Wow. So you actually need to repaint a new Skaven army.
Right. Yeah. Like I wouldn't ever take my Skaven to a tournament, ever. I would never do it. Because I think most of them are painted badly.
Do you regret painting at that level?
No. It was where I was at the time.
Sure, but so like let me push on this a little. So your Smash Bat army was a speed paint.
It was.
Your Ogre army was a speed paint.
Yes, it was.
Would you ever take either of those to an event?
No.
Given
but they were
that,
speed paints.
Yeah, of course. Given that, do you feel do you regret having speed painted those armies, or do you wish that? Okay. And that's what I wanted to kind of lean in on, like, because what I was hearing is that you've painted something as a speed paint and it's now doesn't meet your standard.
No, the Skaven weren't speed painted. That's the problem.
Well, yeah, I understand that. Like that was a different quality of painting. Like
yeah, it was almost 10 years ago I painted the vast majority of that army, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, it was 10 years ago I painted the vast majority of that army. That's not wrong.
Dear God. That's when I painted my goblins.
Yeah. It was 10 years ago, buddy. So I mean, like, obviously I was in a much different place in the hobby 10 years ago, right? I mean, it's just now there are some characters and stuff like that I've painted more recently, because I've continued to always expand the army over time. But I just, I wouldn't, like, I only bring things to tournament I'm legitimately proud of that I think have a chance at winning best painted. Like, that's what I'm there for.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Scribbity scroobity, I'm coming for that best painted booty, right? Like, that's what I'm here for. And the so like that is just not at the level. It's just not. And that being said, I want the chance to do it again, but how do I hit the right level? Other things that I would go in for, okay? Because it's not the only thing I would go in for. There are other things that they could sway me with, like if they didn't end up doing Skaven, but they did something cool in some other way. Legitimately, if they actually released a full Kislev army for the old world, that could pull me in, depending on like what that would be like.
So would you do an old world army?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
It's so funny.
I like Kislev. I've always liked Kislev. You know, it's a thing.
Yeah, I do. It's so funny that you mentioned that. It's because it actually touches upon what I realize. Like, it's one of my outstanding like hobby goals, like my hobby targets. I'm not there yet, but it's something I want to get to. I really want to do like a Frozen Wastes army.
Sure.
Like, I've never done like a snow / like cold army. Like, all of my armies are neutral or warm. Like, they all are temperate zone to like.
I understand. Yeah, I got you.
And so I want to do a snow army. I haven't figured out what that army is yet. And so like a Kislev would be fun, but I don't know that I don't ever see myself playing Old World. And I learned from 40K, like I learned my lesson when I bought into like a bunch of 40K. Like what was I bought like a Custodes. I was like, I'll do an elite thing. It'll be fun, and I'll have a 40K army to play. And I bought it, painted it, did a speed paint just so that I had something to play with y'all. And then I was like, one, I'm never going to play these. Like, if I have the option, I'm just not playing 40K. We're going to play AOS.
Right.
And two, like, I really don't care about this game or these models. So like, I wasted my time. Right. So like, I know better than to buy Old World because I know I'm never going to play.
Yep.
So, but I could see that for you for doing it like a Kislev army.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, like I'll play some Old World. Like I'm gonna play some Old World this week. So, in advance of the show, I'm not gonna review a thing without playing it. I mean, obviously,
sure. But yep.
But yeah, like a Kislev army would draw me in because that would be all new sculpts. It's not like we're just selling some old stuff, right?
Right.
Jen said, would you pick a new paint scheme base style for new Skaven or essentially expand and replace the old ones you have? I would pick a totally new scheme and a new basing and everything. Like it would be straight new. Complete break.
How are you going to do new? Would you do a different clan? Would you paint it all in a certain clan?
Yeah, sure. It's easy enough. I mean, Skaven that's what's nice about it, right? Is you can just you can just say like, this is clan whatever, that's clan whatever, like Skaven are like that, right? So it's very easy to just do a break off portion.
So have you thought about what colors you'd want to do?
None.
You did that?
Not at all. I have no idea.
Okay.
Not even the slightest. I don't know. So I guess we'll find out if and when the time comes. And then obviously for me, again, if they did like a new Mordheim in any way, yeah, sure, I'd be in for that. It's continually shocking to me year after year. We've talked about it since 2015 that they haven't just decided to print money. When they got kind of in the ballpark with Curse City, they almost ruined themselves. So I guess maybe that's why.
They know better. They know what's coming once Mordheim drops.
Yeah, they almost destroyed the company with that product. So good times.
I mean, Curse City was like, yeah. I wish it was Mordheim.
Yeah, I understand. Dan says New York City subway themed. Absolutely. They're all just on the tracks, just ready to go. That's a solid scheme. Okay. So, all right. That's kind of our plans. We want to know what your plans are. What are your plans for the new year? Are you planning an army? What are your hobby goals? What are you looking to improve, to work on? Stuff like that. If you're watching this later, drop me a comment. Put it down there. If you're watching now, hey, drop it over there. Tell us what you're working on this year. Okay. Tom, let's talk about some picking and planning. Here we go. Let's talk about the criteria. We got to lay this down before we do the next portion. Okay, the ranking.
Yep.
Okay. Pick and plan. Here's my list. Here's my strategy, the concerns, and then the strategy for how you go about getting a new army, being happy with it, getting it done and painted, and getting it on the table. Okay? Here's what I've got, but I want to know what I missed. Here are the 4 main considerations you should take into account, in my mind, when you're thinking about an army. 1, price. Okay? And by that, I don't just mean going and buying the kits. That means secondary market availability, 3D print sculpt, alternative sculpt availability, anything like that.
Conversion costs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Total price.
As someone who had to drop $60 per 10 models for conversions.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, so that's one. And by the way, you take this into account. If your budget's like, yeah, I got the money, I don't care. Then okay, cool. Then that's fine.
Yep.
Right? Good for you. That's very lucky. But that's fine, right? That means you know you have a big budget, and so just make sure you understand what your outlay is gonna be. Right.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Number 2. Play experience and your tastes. Like, what do they play like? The story you told earlier was perfect. And I'm in the same boat as you. I can't play slow, plotty, melee-only armies. Like, I can play melee only, right? Or things that run a little bit of shooting or whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't think Suns fall in the same category as Trolls, because Suns are actually quite tricky with the nature of their, like, objective control and their relatively high movement comparison. And I always build them to where they're even faster, right? Because I'll have like the one guy who can run and charge and like yada, 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 right? I'll have broad for +2 movement. And like, I actually build them very mobile, which says everything about my tastes.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so like what that player experience is going to be. Do you want an army that, you know, is a more castle-y build where you're kind of trying to execute on some plan and then shoot out from your castle? Do you like that style of play or not? Because some armies very much want to play like that. Tzeentch, New Cities, right? They want to build little castles and then pew, 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 shoot you over their walls, right? Do you want to like bring your whole army into them on one turn, possibly turn 1 or 2, you know, because that's how something like Iron Jaws or somebody like that wants to play.
I really like that play style. Like, I've recognized that I've fallen in love with we ice for our entire army from the top of 1.
Right.
And you know, that it has its perks and it has its bad downfalls.
And then number 3, and this is important, you ran into this again with your corn, is your painting complexity and your paint scheme. We both talked about this, right?
Yeah.
Which is how complicated are they to paint? How hard are the models to resolve to a level you find appealing? And that's it. That's the only metric, right? It doesn't, like, how complicated is the model for you in your current level of skill, endurance, the amount of time you have to paint, all of those things to get them to a level that you are happy with.
Yeah.
Period. That's the metric, right? And that can be very tough to understand. Okay? Because there are some models that just really fail at that. All right. By the way, Adam over here in the chat said, I'm just getting started, so my plans are to be not too hampered by my pursuit of perfection. No commitment to any specific army at this point. Just want to see how I enjoy painting in general. Adam, you've already got a great attitude. That's absolutely right. You know, if you're a newer painter, there's no such thing as perfection. If you're an existing advanced painter, there's no such thing as perfection. Perfection's a trap. And I see painters who are newer or lower on the skill curve. It's not judgment. It's just a statement about where they are in their journey, right? Saying, well, I have to paint every model to perfection. No, you're not. You're painting every model slowly because it isn't perfect. There's still 100 flaws on that model by the time it's done, because you just don't have the skills to resolve a model at the high enough level, right? So all you're really doing is wasting your time when what you should be focusing on is learning, right? And like challenging yourself, pushing yourself in some way, working slightly outside your comfort zone, and so on. At any rate, painting complexity. Last one, play complexity. Okay. This is an important one to me. Some armies are just, especially now, crazy complicated to play. They have like so many moving parts, right? Tom, I know, we were talking about the old world. The real question with the old world is not, do you want to play a rank and flank game, or do you want to play some version of probably Warhammer Fantasy Battles, 8th edition or whatever, right? It's how far are you willing to go to not play with battle tactics?
I mean, it's true. It's true.
But
it has my attention.
But play complexity amongst some armies in AOS has truly skyrocketed, right?
Yep.
And I think that's something you need to think about. I like playing my son's army, as you know, because it is simple. It plays the fundamentals, right? I have a small number of game pieces. I have a small number of things I'm trying to resolve, so I'm playing the fundamentals. The movement game, the fighting game, picking my targets. I'm not worried about balancing the 17 different special rules. All my different crazy units are trying to resolve simultaneously, right? I do think we've pushed the game to a point where it is just so complicated now in some cases, as far as what's going on.
And I'm feeling that even with FEC, as weird as that sounds.
Sure.
About unit functions and just timing and the it is one of those timing ballet dance armies.
Yep.
And I generally don't like those as much.
Yep.
I just because they are because there's so much else to balance right now in the game. I'm hesitant, so I'm going to certainly be playing those locally, be playing those at a lower point level, and then see if I want to scale up to 2,000.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, and so understanding the complexity scale is something important. Now, let's talk about how you discover this stuff, okay? Because that's easy to say. You might look at me and go, yeah, Vince, okay, let's say I think those things are all important, but how do I know those things, right? Especially if I'm dealing with a new army, if I'm a newer player, right? Whatever. All right. So price is easy, right? Price is just, you can look on the website and see how much the kits are to buy. You can go to My Mini Factory and search for 3D print alternatives or whatever. You can go, Google around or ask on social media, hey, what are some fun alternative sculpts for this army? Earlier, people were talking about all sorts of alternative sculpts for skeletons and stuff. There's lots of different miniature producers who've made alternative undead.
It for me, price is a big deal, and that sounds silly given how much I've historically bought and stored, and how many I have in my basement, right? Mm-hmm. And yet, one of the things that gets me is that when I do see a wonderful bundle at a good deal, at this point, at launch, if I see a FOMO box drop, and I know it's an army that I'm going to want in the future, that I'm planning on collecting at some point in the future, yep, I will buy it without hesitation and throw it in my closet. My Soul Blight, I ended up building, right?
Yep.
But I bought those a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Sure.
Right? It was generations ago. This Christmas, or same that Gloomspite gets, they dropped I never built my all Squig army, but I bought the Squig Lanch, Battle Force box last year. And I'm sitting on that. At some point I will do all Squigs after the hype dies down. Same thing with OBR. This holiday season rolled around. I want to do OBR at some point. It's the last of my death armies. I've cycled through all the death armies over the last 3 years. And it's the last kind of holdout. I'm looking at a Tomb King conversion army, not sure exactly what I want to do yet. The reality is that OBR, they had a wonderful Battle Force box drop. Yep. When you can get them at a great deal, especially when you can get them at those markdown percentage off prices, right? From secondary, from retailers. Absolutely. That price will move me.
Yep.
On an army to throw something on the shelf and just wait.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you got to Look around. I agree. Danny Smith said, you used to be able to look on the website to see how much kits are. Now the new site is painful to try to navigate. Oh, Danny, you're not wrong. That is true. But conceptually, you can look at the website and understand the prices and things like that. But yeah, don't forget to look at secondary sources, online stores and retailers that are offering discounts, older bundle boxes, like search around for those older bundle boxes and see if any of your friendly local game stores have them. Support those kind of people if you can, especially if they have them at a deal, that kind of thing. Okay. Now, the play experience. That's, you run some test games. You can do that with proxies. Just moving bases around or grabbing appropriate models from another range and just saying, like, these are my Chaos Warriors or whatever, right? You can do that on TTS, right? You can just drop all the models in, run them on TTS. Okay. So there's lots of ways to run test games where you don't have the actual army, right? So I think that's like a step people often don't do, but they should. And in a similar vein, painting a test model, right, which is some of the things you were sending me that made you realize your Khorne army wasn't going to work. You didn't just go in and start doing a whole unit. You were doing like, one model, two models, something like that, right?
Yeah, I look for something that is, when I look for a test model, this is a helpful thing because like there can be bad test models.
Yep.
I look for something that has all of the techniques that you're going to do on your final model. And so, for example, like when I did my Flesh Eater model that I sent around, when I tested on him, there's a couple different skin washes I wanted to try. And so I did 2 of those to that step. And then once I figured out which one I liked, of those 2, I went to the one that I liked and did the final like freehand burn skin effects. And one of the I wanted to make sure it had hair and bone and all these different elements that I knew that some models would have more of or less of, but I wanted to make sure to practice it to make sure that I could, I could hit all of the techniques in a single practice model.
Yep, exactly. So you want make sure it's representative of what your color scheme is actually going to be. Take a couple of swings at it, right? It doesn't have to be one model. By the way, that doesn't mean you have to use multiple models. You just keep painting over the same guy.
Sure. Well, I like to set them side by side, especially when there's subtle differentiations in skin and stuff like that, right? That I want to. Yeah.
You can certainly do that. I'm just saying you don't have to. Don't feel like you've got to have 5 different models to do 5 different test schemes. You can do one, take a picture of it, do another one, reprime that guy, take a picture of, paint it, take a picture of it, and repeat. Larry's been painted how many times over the course of this channel? He's still right here. Rocking and rolling. He's never been stripped. Still looking good and fresh. Got that detail. Larry's ready to go. And so, he's been completely primed over, 30 times. Okay. So, paint is pretty thin. So yeah, basically run tests of both the army and the paint. And then watch battle reports of the army. That's another thing you can do. Watch other people play the army. There's lots of good battle report channels out there. Go watch people play the game.
I would also recommend, just to get a feel for it, Rob's weekly rundown shows are wonderful to talk about what lists are showing up in various metas across the world, and how those lists are performing. There are multiple times where I've went, I wasn't always watching his show. Sorry, Rob. But I would often go in, especially when I'm wanting to explore some of the range of an army that I haven't played. What I'll often do is skim the shows to look for results and then look for how those armies played specifically regarding list composition, just to get a good feel. Also, you can be involved in communities that are actively discussing them. There are tons of WhatsApp communities out there. If you haven't discovered this hidden corner of the AOS world, I would highly encourage you to jump on WhatsApp and start hunting for some of those communities, because they can be super helpful just to listen to how other people who are playing those armies multiple times a week are experiencing those armies. Just to make sure that you're in the right space.
Yep, absolutely agreed. And then finally, compare to past experiences. Like once you've done that research, and or you read the scrolls, you have a general understanding of how it works, either through running some tests, watching battle reports, listening to material on it, talking to other people who play the army, all these things, right? Then like compare to your past experiences and be honest with yourself. Do you like this kind of thing? Like really, interrogate your own sensibilities, as it were, right? Like I have come to learn I like high mobility, speedy, sort of punchy armies, right? Or tricksy armies. I'll take either one. And so like, original recipe Slanesh as it used to be before they broke it, Ironjaws, Skaven, all of these fit my playstyle, and I enjoy them. That cities list I built.
That you say that. I love that you say that about Ironjaws, because I remember when I was like, I think you would really enjoy it. And you're like, no, that's ridiculous.
Sure.
And I was like, no, I really think you would. And now it's one of your most beloved armies.
It is. It really is. I mean, that cities list I built, that cities army that I built was like that, because it was all, vehicles and fast moving stuff, flying things, all things that don't work like that anymore and can't be a legal list anymore. But that's how it worked at the time.
I mean, it's the highest compliment, right? When Trent
when Trent and Ellie, is when we were playing Game 5, when I played Game 5 against Trent and Ellie at NashCon, and we were setting up our armies, and he was playing, like a Varangard. He was playing the standard Varangard host Knights of the Everchosen nonsense. The 22-inch grasping plate build. It was just like whatever. And he set up the army. We played out the game, and he ended up winning. It all came down to like one dice roll. I needed to roll a 3 up to win the game and didn't. I rolled a 2. And, so he won. It was a good game. And he was like, wow, when you set up that army, it just looked like a bunch of garbage. That was pretty good.
Wasn't it bullshit? Just a bunch of bullshit?
Yeah, but I wasn't going to say that word. But yes, correct. That is what he said. Yes, that is the direct quote. But it was a fun thing to like build an interesting army. So you compare to your past experiences. That's why I say if possible. Hobby Daddy asked, what if you have never or barely have played a war game before? Yeah, exactly. It might not always be possible to compare to your past experiences. So in that case, you need to rely on other people. So again, that's or yourself through tests. Run those test games, set up some bases, run some proxies with a friend, or play on TTS. Or if you're not even at that point, just go watch battle reports, right? Watch how people play the army. Watch how they move around. What are the things they do? What are the tricks they do? Go watch Season of War or whatever and find where they've covered that army or something like that, like a high quality bat rep channel, and look at those things. Or you can still, by the way, talk to the communities. Like Tom mentioned, the WhatsApp groups. Like, jump in one of the WhatsApp groups for that stuff. If you can get dialed into those. Like, those people are always more and ready and raring to share their opinions about the army and how it plays, right? They're always looking to make more converts. And they will share it with you. Boondale says, how do Slaves to Darkness play? Not very well right now. No, I mean,
Vanguard are really good.
Yeah, sure. The question I should that was I was debating on my joke between not very well and how much do you like Varangard.
Sure.
Right now, the army's in kind of a rough spot right now. It's a very big army. It is primarily a melee army, and it's meant to be like a versatile hammer and anvil chaos force. Like that's what it's meant to be. Like a classic hammer and anvil force. Its primary two troop types being Chaos Warriors and Chaos Knights. One of the most like sort of clearly delineated hammer and anvils in the history of the game, right? Now, how well it actually achieves that, that's a different sort of situation. It's a very big book. It has a lot of different things going on in it, so it's hard to really sum it up. It does have quite a lot of variability to it, but it's all going to run some version of like melee hammer and anvil or punch counter punch or whatever, that kind of thing, however you want to think about it, for the most part. I suppose there are a couple real weird armies like Snake Boy Spam or something like that, where you're just trying to like overwhelm them with mortal wounds and recursion. But those kind of skew lists are never really what I would recommend to people.
Those aren't the meat and potatoes of the army,
right?
And like if you come to an event, that's not how, that's not how they run.
Danny Smith says, I also prefer armies that have a variety of viable builds instead of just one that works. Anything like that in AOS? Yeah, I mean, realistically, most armies in AOS are like that. Like I know I just got done sort of railing against Slaves to Darkness for sort of having a one viable thing right now. But the reality is most armies do have multiple paths to victory, multiple sort of lists that work. There might be some pieces that are shared across the board. But, when I think of most of the armies that are up around the top 2/3 of the army, so like everything that's in the fat middle up, right? Most of those have multiple paths to victory. So like Gloomspite gets lots of different constructions I've seen that can be successful. Skaven, lots of different constructions I've seen that can be successful. And that army's actually in the trash win rate wise. But still lots of different constructions. Nurgle, yeah, sure, absolutely. Khorne, many different builds, including some truly gross builds that are really fun.
Probably not true with Slaanesh. Like, there's probably one build of Slaanesh that's...
Yeah, I don't want to talk about Slaanesh, but yeah, sure. I mean, like, Orc
But I'm saying
Warclans.
it's not all armies. It's not.
No,
all
I understand.
Armies, yeah.
As I said, most of those armies in the top 2/3. Orc Warclans, certainly lots of different viable builds there across that book. Quite a lot, actually. Just because of the fact to be able to go Iron Jaws, Cruel Boys, Big Wa kind of situations, and so on. I mean, there's more, but those are all ones that immediately pop to my mind as being quite versatile in their options. So, yeah, there's a lot. Even Soulblight Gravelords, I should say, and OBR. I think OBR, for as boring as much as I hate it, actually does have multiple quite viable builds. So there you go. Okay. Tom, are you ready for a project? Oops.
Always.
Okay, Tom. Let's do it. Here we go. We're going to rank the armies.
Hold on. Before we get there, I want to add something. There is another factor that I forgot to mention that will sometimes sell me on an army.
Sure.
And that's it's a display board. I know that may sound utterly ridiculous, but if like I have a concept for something that I want to like writ large, right? Like that can drive an army. So for example, like I wanted to build this like mausoleum on a cliffside board. Like, it was just something I wanted to do. I had the 3D print. Like, I had this... Like, Vince, how long was that concept in my head?
A long time. Yeah. I don't know. A couple of years at least. Sure.
Like, yeah, probably 2 years.
Sure.
And I finally, like, got it out, got it built. And, like, my army was vaguely related to it, right?
Yeah,
it was
sure.
A bunch of zombies and sanitarium, right? Like, so what made me build that army was actually the board, not the army.
No, that's
and so
interesting.
Sometimes that can actually drive your creative decision, right? Sure. When you want to realize
something else in the broader hobby. You get a cool idea for a basing scheme, for a display board, for whatever. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Very good. Now, gosh darn it. Let's get into it. Okay, Tom, I have here an axis. This axe of sorts. And here's how it works. In the top left is easy to play and low cost. Yeah? So that's like before. We have done this.
This is not new.
It is not.
This is not new.
We're redoing it with now taking the current world into consideration. Sure. Okay, like where we currently sit. We have done this project before, but I felt this was a worthwhile thing to update. Okay, so the closer something gets to this top left corner, the easier it is to play and the lower the cost to collect it. Right? Yep. Now, as you move right, the price increases.
Yep.
Okay, As you move down, it becomes more complicated. Yep. We've had a lot of new army books come out. Things have changed since the last time we did this. We've had new offers, new prices, new options in the market, things like that. So I thought we'd take another crack at this and see where we land. Okay?
Sure.
Sound good?
Yep.
All right. By the way, if you haven't hit like yet, please do so, or subscribe. Do all those things. It's cool, and then you'll be cool. It will increase your coolness for sure. All right, let's get amongst it. Here we go. Tom, we're going to start with Idneth Deepkin. That's where we're beginning. Where are they going? Where are they going?
I'm going to say they're going to be blind green.
Uh-huh.
And they're going to be in the towards the harder cost is where I would put them.
I agree. I think Idneth are in a rough spot. I think they're actually quite hard to play. Yep. I think they're actually
barring sharks, right?
Barring just shark spam, sure. But then,
right.
How long is that? That'll
last. Yeah, that'll last for
another
maybe
couple weeks.
Yeah, War Scroll, Battle Scroll, thing.
Right? Which is due anytime now.
Yep.
And we'll probably break that. So,
no, it's higher cost. Higher cost.
Yeah, it's where it sits. Right side is higher cost.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. I moved it over. Good. Yeah. You're a little behind, but yes, it's over there.
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, it's expensive if you want to actually build up the whole force.
Yeah, there's no way to really buy it in bulk. Although I will say this, a lot of that may be available.
A lot of it may be available. What?
Used. Like, Idneth has seen better days, right?
Sure.
And so, like, if you had a really popular army that no one plays anymore, there's a lot of it on the secondary market. Now, you don't want to bank on that.
Sure.
But
that's how I ended up with an army to be heavily represented on the secondary market. That's the issue.
But that's how I ended up with an entire Idneth army.
Sure.
Right? Is that, like, somebody secondary market was donating. And they're like, I don't want this anymore, and sold it at, like, pennies on the dollar.
Yep.
And now I have 18 eels.
Sure. I mean, like, it's just a real challenge to me, is my honest answer. Okay? Mm-hmm. It is both expensive and pretty hard to play. There's not a lot of representation of 3D print or alternative sculpts available out there. It's a lot of unique-ish models. It's not to say there's none. I'm just saying, like, there's not a lot. And some of the models are really unique. Like, finding a big, giant replacement turtle is not the easiest thing or whatever, right? That kind of thing.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Night Haunt. Where are they going, Tom? The Ghosty Boys.
I'm gonna say they are middle. They are on the lower cost to collect.
Agreed.
But I would say that they're probably firmly in the like middle.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Night Haunt aren't hard to play.
No,
like they're like it's not a like it is. Their problems are not like play complexity. For why they're experiencing what they are currently in the meta, right? And in general, it's pretty easy to collect them. You don't have painting on this matrix.
I don't. No.
But what I would say is this: they're really easy to paint.
Sure.
They are one of the easiest armies.
I would love a Y-axis or a Z-axis. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
A Z-axis of paint, but I couldn't figure out how to make that work on this thing.
No,
but
I understand.
Yes.
I understand.
I agree. They are a very easy army to paint.
What I would say, Vince, is I think you might actually enjoy doing that army side.
Yeah, the models just don't grab me. I have painted some Night Haunt. I have some because I
believe that.
When they're Soul Blight. It's just it doesn't really grab me. Yeah, I think they're like there's a lot of Night Haunt in the secondary market. Anything that was ever in a starter box ever effectively always has cheap secondary options for a lot of its stuff.
And even the new models, that Arena of Shades box was like printed into the ground. Like those were were out there in profusion, and that's all your new model. Yep. And so the only thing you really can't get cheap is a black coach. Everything else has been printed in like combo boxes and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think that, like, and I do agree. Howard is saying they should be harder to play. They have a ton of aura effects you have to keep together while you move your attack pieces. I mean, yes, they have some bubbles. I'm not going to agree. So I moved down here a little bit. I think they're still firmly in maybe the middle tier here in some way. They're certainly like harder armies to play, is what I'll say. It feels pretty firmly mid. You're not tracking a huge number of different resources or weird special abilities or, anything like that. So yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Flesh Eater Courts, they're brand new, Tom. I still have the old book picture because I can't be bothered, but at any rate, Flesh Eater Courts in their new incarnation. So the new book, okay? Classically, this was one of the cheapest armies to get together.
I'm going to say this. I still think it's one of the cheapest armies out there.
Okay.
This is why, by the way, I pulled the trigger that I did. And I went all in on them, is because I realized at my local store in their used model section, they had like more horrors and flayers and ghouls that I could shake a stick at.
Yep.
And so I just bought them literally in bucket loads, right? Sure. Of just old used models, because there were just so much out there. And I had also followed my own advice and bought like 4 getting started boxes years ago, back when they were like $85, then marked down by the percentage. And you got all of the units in the army at that time.
Yep.
And so it's actually a really cheap army to build.
Yep.
And some of the most popular builds are just 18 flare or 18 horse, which again, super cheap. What I would say is this: I think that I think it's going to be a little bit more complex than most people. Like, what I'll say is this: you are balancing lots and lots of bubbles. And you are balancing and you're tracking heroic deeds.
Yep.
But it's also like it lends itself to like a push forward and smash army. And so I still think that I think it's fairly straightforward. Mm-hmm. Like it can be fairly straightforward. There are some builds that are more complex, but it like the most popular builds will be fairly straightforward.
Yep.
Flood the enemy with bodies. Send a bunch of hammers over and just see what's left standing afterwards and recur anything that doesn't. So I think it's an easier play style.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. Now, in the old book, they would have been like up here in the corner. They would have been maybe the absolute corner keeper. Now that I think they're down here, they got a little bit more complicated. They got a little bit more costly. If you want Usheron or something, like that's a costly box, right? Or it will be. Theoretically.
Yep.
I mean, I have no idea what it's going to cost, but like, I also know what they price those big characters like that.
Probably
so it's probably like
130.
No, I bet he's like 160, 180. I'm like,
you really
crazy.
think so?
Yeah, I bet it'll be nuts.
No, I think he's 130. Like Kalia's not 180, right?
It's fine. He'll be crazy. That's a lot of money for one dude. Okay.
No, it is.
So like,
bats will probably be $70 for 3.
Something like that. Probably 65. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Now the nice part is you can buy. They did do the release box, and that release box does come with all the new stuff. I mean, not Usheron, obviously, but like it comes with more Beg Knights. It comes with new Crypt Guard. You probably don't need more than a unit of 10 of those ever, so that's great. You're covered there, right? So like it does come with a bunch of that new stuff, which is fantastic, right? So like you can take the old Getting Started box, buy the new FEC launch box, and like you're in a pretty darn good place for having a lot of what you want, right? Or buying 2 of the old Getting Started boxes or something. So that's not too bad of an investment, really. Now, as well, Flesh Eaters have a huge amount of good representation in the secondary and 3D printing market, right? As you just said, lots of places where you can pick these up secondhand, but there's also tons of alternative sculpts for like ghouls and horrors and things like that. So there's just
in fact have a bunch of 3D printed. Originally it was my Vargulf, and now I'm using them for my courtiers, right?
Yep.
My flares. So
same here. Okay. I have like a huge 60 3D printed ghouls, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So at any rate, I still think it's here. It's still a very good choice in my mind. It's also we'll comment on the paint thing. Also, in much honestly a pretty easy and fun paint. Like You asked, do I regret speed painting my flesh eaters? No, it was great fun.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, I can't wait to start painting again after I've cleaned up down there.
Yeah, sure.
Because I was fairly close to being done of like the difficult aspects of the paint scheme, right?
Yep.
And I was getting ready to move into the fun part of the paint scheme, which is doing all the burns and the freehand and stuff like that.
Yep. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, that is true. Jen S, who said we also don't know what their Vanguard box will be if they have a really good start collecting, but if the Vanguard gets Fire Slayered, it'd be a lot more expensive for stuff. Absolutely true.
As an aside, if you can find a start collecting box for Flesh Eater Quartz, buy it right now.
Buy it now. That is a buy. That is a hard buy. In many local game stores. I was in a couple game stores right before the holidays, like, picking up gifts and stuff, and I saw a couple of them on the shelf in various game stores around me. So I was like, they're out there still. You can get them.
You can find them, buy them,
Yep.
because they are worth their box weight.
Yep. Okay. Lumineth Realm Lords, Tom. Where are they going? How close to the bottom right corner are they? That's the only question we need to ask.
They're
here.
certainly closer than Ideneth.
Yep.
I would probably put them I would have them touching the high cost, like that edge.
Okay.
Like, yes, they had a getting started, or they had a Battle Force box last year, but it wasn't good. Like, there were just dead units in the box that you would never play. So I would have it touching the right wall, and probably have it half a book down towards the.
Yeah. I think I agree with that completely. Honestly, that was my same instinct. I think Lumineth are a really challenging army to play. There, you have a lot of stuff to manage. I mean, maybe there's like a cow stone build that's a little easier, right? You have a lot less units, but like Lumineth as concepted by the army is just a lot of very complex interactions. I think back to like Benjamin's magic phase where he had like his 12 sequence spells he was trying to cast in particular order, right? There's a lot of things that they're going for. They are expensive. They are hard to play. They're a very fiddly army. They are a very weird castle that also can't play as just a castle. And like, it's just, they're all over the shop. Like, they're a weird army, and they're hard to win with. They're hard to play. They're hard to navigate. They take a lot of mental energy. I think they're just exhausting for the most part. And they're very expensive. Availability of alternative sculpts out there in the market isn't super high. I mean, certainly you could just use like old high elves for some of the stuff. Like my Blade Masters are just old Sword Masters or something. Like, I'm not saying that's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a lot out there. It's not a deep well unless you just do generic elves. Right? In which case, that's going to be very hard when it comes to like Fox Spirit shooty guys and Cow Stone Mountains and the twins or whatever, right? Like, there's just a bunch of weird, unique things. So even if you replace like elvish archers and elvish spearmen, the wardens and such with their things, it's just it's problematic. Artorius Rex said Lumineth needs a foundational rewrite. I tend to agree. And then on the painting tip, they're also a pain in the tuchus to paint. Like, they have got to be one of the hardest armies to get into. Not maybe the hardest, but one of.
Yep. As one that has a Lumineth army, I agree.
Yeah. Keith Rogers said, I was sad to sell my LRL, but happy not to have to deal with my opponent's reactions to them anymore. Nice. I love it. Yes. Obsidian Crane said there is an increasing amount of proxy stuff in the 3D market. Yeah, it exists. It's not zero. I mean, none of these things are zero. It's just not as common as like Flesh Eaters or something like that, right? Where you really have things that are quite dead on for just about anything you'd want, because some of their stuff is so weird and things like that. Okay. Cool. All right, let's grab some Ogre Maw Tribes, shall we? Ogre Maw Tribes. Where are we going here, Tom? Where are we going?
I'm gonna shove them up near the middle top. They are easy to play.
Agreed.
The 6 monster truck build is super popular. It's super straightforward. And it's not so expensive. Like back, especially when you could get like the combo box with the Mornfang and the monster trucks for the getting started. That was not a terrible buy. So if you're wanting to do monster trucks, and there's actually still a lot of monster trucks out in the like secondary market as well.
Yeah.
From prior generations of them being successful. So,
I mean, these guys have a very high secondary market availability because they've been around forever, but the sculpts are still good. I picked up a lot of my Ogre Army secondhand when I bought it.
I casually considered an Ogre Army this fall.
Yep.
Because of how much was out in the secondary market and what I already had. There
are a lot of 3D prints and alternative sculpts available. Some actually just amazing ones. There's some really, really, really wonderful alternative ogre sculpts out there from some of the like larger 3D printing houses and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure, I don't remember exactly who's all done them, but there's many alternative entire ogre lines I've seen that are just fantastic top to bottom. Like whole pirate ogre ranges and stuff like that. So you've got lots of 3D print, lots of alternative sculpt availability, and especially on the Gutbuster side of the house, especially that, right?
Yep.
Kyle Nelson says they have a lot of fine cast. The number of fine cast models should be a consideration. Yeah, but again, like there's not actually that many. Like, yes, you're talking about the fire guy. You're talking about the butcher and the slaughtermaster, and you're talking about the yetis and man-eaters. Is that right? Did I get them all? Because the gorger's been replaced now with the new cool gorgers. Right. I think I'm right. I might be missing one, but Kyle, you can tell me if I'm wrong on those. I think those are the fine cast ones, but in most cases you have easy alternatives for those. I didn't use you can it's not hard to just proxy in any of those things because all the ogres look similar. Minor adjustments, 3D prints, alternative stuff out there. There's so much. Add some bits on. I didn't use a hunter at the time because when I built my army, they didn't have some of the newer hunters you can use. They only had the old crappy fine cast hunter. I just converted one out of a regular plastic ogre. Just put big spears on his back and gave him the appropriate stuff, and there you go. It's cool. So, a lot of them are not. It's not as bad, and there are so many options out there. And on the play side, ogres. It's just so much fun and easy to play. It actually is an army I have a great amount of fun playing. I don't put them on the table very often, but I do quite enjoy them. I will say I'm more of a Gutbusters player than I am a monster truck player. I've never really liked the Stonehorns and Thundertusks and stuff. I like the boys, like to get out the meat mountains and just get them moving. I like big units of gluttons and stuff like that. And yes, I did say Slaughtermaster, and yes, it is the worst model. It is really bad. Really bad. And so, I think Ogres is just, again, a really strong choice for a new player. Extremely easy to play. Very low cost comparatively. Great choice for an expansion army as well. It can be a great and fun project. And on the painting side, very forgiving. Right? So, okay. Cool. Next up. Let's keep going. Some of these are the old book images, by the way, because I couldn't be bothered to update it. I have a folder with all these little images in it, and I was like, I'm not updating them. It's fine. You get it. What Gloom Spite gets. Where are they sitting, Tom? Where are they sitting?
I would put them pretty dead middle.
Okay. Defend yourself.
Yeah, they're not expensive. Or they're not cheap. Let me say it that way. They're not cheap, but there are still a number of bundle boxes out in the market. Sure. No, and so I would drop them down play style out of the easy to play. I would put them in the middle of the middle.
I have moved them to the middle, but just slightly down right from that.
Sure, because I mean, what I would say is this: they have a standard like punch counter punch play style.
Sure.
That like isn't difficult to master. You put things out, let the people charge it, and then you charge them. You pop out fanatics and charge them or whatever. And so it's a fairly straightforward. If you're doing trolls, you're literally just pushing things forward. Just all the meat, straightforward. But again, none of it is really low cost. There have been a couple boxes, bundle boxes. There have been some combat patrol-y stuff, like the Armies of Renown, like the Dawnbringers Book 1 group. They had a box there. We had a box for trolls in Book 2. So there have been a number of these like value boxes that have dropped recently. Yep. Last year we had the Squig Lanch.
I mean, look, we have had so many Battle Force boxes of Gloomspite Gets. It is crazy.
Yep.
Like, I think we've had 4 or 5 over the years. It's nuts. Like, more than any other army. These guys show up almost every year. Okay?
Yep.
The only reason I think they're kind of higher on the cost, because I agree with you. Lots of Battle Force boxes and bundle deals. Lots of secondary market availability. Like things like Shootas and Stabas and stuff like that. Crazy secondary market availability for your main goblins, right? Going back years and years and years and years. Okay? Like, all of that is true. My issue is, I think the cost on them, like the left-right axis, is really going to swing back and forth depending on how you decide you want to collect and play Gloomspite. Okay? Because this is one of those armies that's so big that if your goal is to, I want to be able to play Gloomspite and I want to be able to vary my lists regularly between some different stuff, like I like the goblins and the trolls and the squigs, then you're in for a penny, right? Like that's going to be a pretty penny all told.
And spiders.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? Like, Enkiel said it's a 3-army book. No, it's a 4-army book because you forgot trolls.
Right. And so, like, I don't even believe in the spider part, but sure. I understand the little Arachnarok dude is fine. I like Arachnaroks.
But some people want to run all spiders. It's not good, but
they're
some
wrong,
people want
but
to
yes.
run that.
But they exist. You're right. But that's my point, right? Like that's where the wider your aperture goes, or the larger your appetite gets for Gloomspite, the more this book just shifts right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's just hard to have everything.
Yeah. Even if you start going in alternative prints and stuff like that, it just gets more and more and more expensive, right? To get everything.
I've been buying Gloomspite, or what is Gloomspite, for the better part of a decade. This fall, I meaningfully added to that army by adding those.
Yeah.
Which I only had 3 of previous.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have like 15 plus Trug. But the point is that like I've been buying and collecting Gloomspite models for a decade.
Yep.
And still didn't have those.
Yep. That's right. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Rule of cool, is this what you want me to do? Go something like this. Here. That's Gloomspite. Make it real like fat and long and thin. Could be anywhere in this spectrum. Yeah. I could do that. Okay. There we go. That's what their spectrum is. All right. Let's keep moving. I will say, if you have a more constrained appetite, like I'm just going to collect squigs, then not only can that, but they can be an easier paint too, depending.
Yeah.
So, okay. Bone Reapers. Ossiarch Bone Reapers. I think these guys are really interesting because to me, they're actually not that hard to play. Like, I think as an army, it's like there's a little bit of stuff. You have to keep their command abilities in mind that they use now, right?
Yep.
But they get a lot easier once we got rid of RDP, and they just basically got unique command abilities that they can fire off, right? Like the new version of this made this a lot easier.
Yep.
It's not that complicated. Oftentimes, like a lot of the lists, you're just largely relying on small units of tough dudes, Stalkers or Immortus Guard or Morghast Arakai or Arakai or whatever, you know. And so like, or some Death Riders, you know, whatever, that kind of thing. And you're just like doing your +3 movement command and, you know, just remembering the unique command for that you want to execute at the right time. It's like, it's just using command abilities. It's just playing with a sort of pretty straightforward military force.
It's the fundamentals of Warhammer, right? Like it's the basics.
Exactly. And so like, to me, the new book actually moved them quite a bit up the chart here into the lower complexity, which I like. This is one of the few victories I think we've had from a complexity scale over the course of 3.0, where I looked at the new book and went, that got better on the complexity scale by a meaningful amount. Right? Like your units are often just good and they work and they do the thing. Great. Right? They have very clearly defined delineated roles and so on. Now, cost-wise, they're expensive-ish.
You can go to your local store and pick up a Battle 4 today. That's mostly usable.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. They're expensive-ish. They don't belong over where Lumineth are. Honestly, they're probably like here sitting over Gloomspite, not because of the size of the army. Like Gloomspite full on would be over here, way to its right. Gloomspite, you know, in one force would be over to its left. But like you do have some more newer, more expensive kits. Do you also get a Nagash? That's a big chunk of change if you end up picking up the big boy for the force, right? That kind of thing.
And a Catacross.
And an Ark in the black. Yeah, exactly, right. And so, like, you know, you're getting Morghast, you're getting all these things. Like, it can be a little much.
Do you convert the entire army from Tomb King Spits? You know,
no.
The eternal questions that you have.
Animusto says the new book for OBR made them a lot easier to play. Just a shame what they did to my poor Gothazar harvesters after the fact. Yeah, you're not wrong. That's right. But I like them now. Like, I think they're here. I think they're actually a pretty paint-wise. By the way, they're actually not that complicated of a paint job either. Like anything skeletons are just generally not that hard. Like they're skeletons. They're bones. Paint them some kind of bone color. Wash them. Dry brush them, paint the armor, done. Right? Like it's not exactly a huge lift here. Okay. Yes, Kuhal says 24-inch bubbles ain't exactly difficult to stay in. Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay. Cool. All right. Auric War Clans. Boy, oh boy. This is like a real tale of 4 cities here, I guess. What are we doing with this, Tom? Where the heck is this going? What are we doing with this?
I'm gonna say it's easy. Like I think I'm gonna be scandalous here, and I'm gonna say ease to play. It's quite easy to play.
Okay.
Because in at least 2 iterations, it is a very straightforward play experience, which is Big Waaagh and Ironjaws, which are your highest meta representations. Like if you're gonna split that book into 4, you know, 75% of what you're gonna see on the table is one of those 2 forces. And honestly, it's not that expensive to collect. Like, here's a fun fact. Not that I want to necessarily spruik it again, but Stormbringer. You can, like, it's part of this subscription, and guess what? I have a Maul Crusher coming.
Sure.
In a couple months. I don't need one, but it's in there with a bunch of Ironjaws and all of, like, next month's issue is the skewer, like the crossbow, and 3 bolt points. Cool. Like that's usable. That's usable in Big Waaagh. You know, like.
Yep.
So I think that it is on the cheaper end to play, and then Ironjaws have been around. And they used to have wonderful start collecting boxes that were out there.
I think I'm going to leave it like almost dead in the middle.
Okay.
And here's my justification for that. because it's like 4 weird armies in one book, really 3. I mean, I'm not counting the Savage Orcs, really, okay? Because I don't think that the GW is counting them either. Like, I really think those guys are gone come 4.0. But I think, you know, as is being said by some people in the chat, Stormbringer isn't available everywhere, right? There is a decent amount of secondary market availability for these guys because, again, they were in a starter box for the Cool Boys and stuff like that, and they've done some big boxes with the Iron Jaws. But it's not a cheap army to play either. Like, it's definitely feels very mid to me, okay? There are some good alternative sculpts and stuff like that out there. But because it's so complicated in the way you want to build it, it's going to fall into the same Gloomspite Gets trap, right? Because, like, are you just building Iron Jaws and that's it? Are you building Big Wall and you want access to everything? Like, boy, oh boy, is that going to swing around that price, right? And the amount of things you have to do and collect and stuff like that.
But Dominion boxes.
Sure. Yeah, I got, like, absolutely. That's why it's in the middle. Right, because despite the size, I'm still marking it lower than Gloomspite, just natively. Because, yes, you're absolutely right. Like, if you favor the Cruel Boys, I mean, my God, Dominion boxes they'll basically give them to you at this point, right? Just please take it. I mean, I saw those things on sale for under $100 lots of times, okay? So, all right. So that's where I think it lands. Okay, next up. Stormcast Eternals.
Ooh. Whoa. I would put them probably directly below Orc.
Like where they're sitting right now, like directly below Auric Warclans? Somewhere like here? Basically,
well, that's not helpful to me because
I understand that you can't see it. You're watching on a delay. But yes, okay, touching into the green, but on the same cost line.
Yep. Because I don't think that they have a straightforward strategy to victory. I think that the play style has to be a little bit more nuanced, and the bloat from the book for the 75 War Scrolls or whatever it is hides the actual paths to victory that are there in the box or in the book.
Right. Okay. These guys are tough for me to place. I think you're right. They're a very complicated army to play. They shouldn't be. They're supposed to be the intro army. This book is so upside down. Right? Yeah, they're supposed to be the fighter class, you said, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100%. They've got a ton of launch boxes. So you can find a lot of the stuff cheap. The problem is a lot of that stuff you can find cheap is garbage.
It's
and not actually in your army. Yes. Dragons are very expensive, and they're pretty good. It's
Do you know when you get dragons in the Stormbringer set? Issues 79 and 80.
Okay.
That is the last shipment you'll ever receive of Stormbringer.
Got it.
Are your dragons.
There's like so many kits, so many trap choices, so much cost if you want to get the whole range. Like, it's just a complicated mess, and it's become quite pricey. Like, Stormcast are just completely upside down right now. I can't say it any other way.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be the intro army, and they just suck horribly at that role. They're terrible. They're not the worst new player army, but boy, are they bad. And most
they're not Lumineth or Skaven.
Sure, but they're not meant to be, right? Like they're like Lumineth and Skaven aren't meant to be your intro armies. That's been the case forever. Right. These guys are. They show up in those starter boxes, and yet they're terrible. Okay. Like, I watched a buddy play these multiple times and just get smashed because he couldn't figure out, like, what am I doing wrong here? And I'm like, well, you're playing all the wrong units. Right? Okay. So, yep, agreed. Maybe even a little more there. Okay, cool. Next up, Beasts of Chaos. BOC. Where are they dropping? We gotta speed this up a little bit, but that's all right.
Okay. I'm gonna say they are high cost, and they are moderate to difficult to play. So I would put them I would put them above, inching into the Ideneth space, above Lumineth. The reason why is because, yes, they are old as Sin models, but there is no bundles. There is no easy way into the design. Oftentimes, you need to have a bunch of disposable, summonable units or the like. And it is a very large range. And so there's just not an easy, cheap way to get into it. And it's not a trading army, or like it's not an easy push forward counterpunch army. Like it has some of that, but it has I would say it's a non-intuitive style army, and there's just a lot of bad units.
Agreed. Completely agreed. I mean, I don't think this one's actually too complicated. Like, it does have, some of its models have quite a lot of secondary market availability. Gore, on-gore, stuff like that, right? Bull gore. But a lot of the models are bad. A lot of the models are old. A lot of the like you have to buy, it's quite expensive actually to get into the range, even with them being old. And they are very actually hard to play, to play right. Like they're, boy oh boy, are they challenging. Now, there are quite a lot of like 3D sculpts and stuff like that are out there for them, so that's an advantage. Like those things like minotaurs and stuff like that, that's just effectively what you're dealing with, right? And, you know, the sort of bestial models. There is a lot of 3D support out there. But this thing also, yes, I agree with Obsidian Crane, who said a high candidate for a range refresh sometime in 4th edition. I agree.
How big of a sinful like trick would that be on you, Vince, if the actual launch box
it was BOC instead of Escape, and they're like, hey, here's the new thing.
Here's the new line refresh.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it could happen. Okay. S2D, Tom. Where's S2D going?
Oof. I would say that it is. I would say that it needs to sit. If OCR and Gloomspite are the top and the bottom of a pyramid, I would put it on the right side of that pyramid. So to the right of them on cost, but above Gets and below OCR on ease of play.
Okay, I'm gonna make a different choice here.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring them to the front because I realize they're behind everything. Bring to front. There we go. Okay, so I'm putting them down here, over top of Ideneth and BOC.
Oh,
here's why.
Okay.
They're a crazy expensive army to actually buy into if you want to get. They are. Whole. Now, huge amounts of secondary market availability. Okay, huge amounts of 3D print alternatives. So that's going to scoot them back.
You're going to want to play Chosen and Varangar, which is going to increase your cost because there's no easy way to get it.
Correct. So I'm going to scoot them back a little for stuff like replacement Chaos Knights, replacement Chaos Warriors. A lot of those kinds of things have just all the secondary market and 3D print availability in the world. Even Varangar and stuff like that do. But like, yes, it gets more and more limited when you get, because what you want is a lot of the more expensive kits, right? Complexity is super high. In fact, I think now I'm going to pull them down some, because this is another one of those giant trap armies. You know, 60, 70 war scrolls, traps left and right, all sorts of things that aren't worth the paper they're printed on. All sorts of things that you think should work but don't, right? So, like, yes, you've got good alternatives for 3D prints and old models and secondary market for Chaos Warriors, for Chaos Knights, even for stuff like Varangar and things like that, just big Chaos Knights, because it's really all they are, right? But But like if you're buying that stuff retail, even close to retail, that's it zooms to the corner, right?
Yep.
Or to the right side. Sorry, I'm just assuming that we're not. And it's a high complexity army. There's a lot of nonsense going on, as far as like different buffs and bubbles and effects and marks and blessings and banners and just like all this stuff, right? So it's to me, on every level, it's got a lot of tricks, traps, and pitfalls that it could hit. So okay. Is it Arturius Rex said? Is it more or less expensive if you want to play a more traditional looking S2D army rather than Vanguard spam? Probably more expensive because you got to fill out more stuff. Like I would say, one of the advantages to Vanguard spam is that like Vanguard are like pretty expensive, or they're costly in the game, so at least they minimize the number of like units you're putting on the board, even though they are exceptionally expensive for 3 knights, $100 kit or whatever. It's crazy. Okay. All right, Nurgle. Nurgly. Where are they going?
I think from an ease of play, I think they're middle of the road.
Yeah.
Meaning that I think that they have some complexity. And I would actually put them on the higher cost middle of the road, because you still need trees, and you need summons, and you need. Yes, it feels like it's going to start low, but you need to have 2 Magath Lords, and you need to have Otkin, and you need to have so many Beasts of Chaos, which are actually surprisingly expensive, and you need to have summons, and you need to have trees. And it goes on and on and on.
Yep. Yeah, I think I want to move them up here in cost a little because you got summons. It's limited, but I think they're complexity wise they're not bad, is what I'll say. Yes, you've got this disease and stuff, but it's a relatively straightforward mechanic, right? To keep track of. You roll a little die, you give them disease points, then you roll dice. That's it, right? And then a little wheel moves at the start of the turn.
And then you reset those numbers and restart tracking again on every unit that's down.
Sure, like they count down to 1 and then they count up again, and they count down to 1 and they count up again. Like it's not nothing. I'm just saying it's not like the highest complexity thing. I think I would rate them more on just doing well with Nurgle is actually rather hard in the current meta. That's a sort of trick. You have to play like one of the most complicated versions of the thing to do really strongly in the meta right now.
So it's your turn. I charge, and because I've charged and I'm within 12 inches of this guy, you can't pile into
all that crap.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know what their new book's going to look like. I don't know all that stuff. Exactly what Obsidian Crane said, like, what you're talking about is the meta right now for the army in 6 months. That could all look very different. I agree. And so, like, it's... That being said, there's, depending on the types of stuff in the army, there's actually quite a large number of, again, alternative sculpts and 3D prints out there. Certainly when it comes to, like, Plague Bearers and anything, like, really hardcore Nurgly, especially on the demon side, there's just tons of options out there, because those kinds of things, like all those kinds of that gross disease demon is a very popular concept, right?
Yeah.
So that stuff's around all over left and right and center. Okay, Corn, where are they going, Tom?
I would say that they are. I would put them under Night Haunt, but on the lower cost side. And somewhere there in the middle of playstyle.
Agreed. Completely agreed. Like, they are a little more complex than Night Haunt. There's some more tricksiness to it. You got to be a little more Johnny. You got to do your murder lists right and know what you're doing, right? But you can also get away with a little more kind of like straightforward lists too. Like Bloodthirster go smash, Blood Warriors walk out and unkillable and make everybody die with murder rolls, and Blood Reavers are out there and they make everybody die with murder rolls. Like, you can go with that version of them as well and still be quite competitive, right? Are you going to like 5-0 a tournament? No, but it's a certainly perfectly viable play experience for most games, right? That's competitive. And so I think they're a little harder, but Cost-wise, again, as you mentioned, there's a couple models that are relatively hard to get your hands on because of the way they were originally released, but there are lots of secondary market availability for most of this army. Bloodthirsters have, in fact, all your Khorne demons, just like with Nurgle, have 50 million alternative sculpts in the market. My God. Like Rage demons, I mean, you could just... It's endless. Okay.
Yep.
The number of alternative sculpts for that stuff. And frankly, their normal guys aren't that weird either. Maybe you buy like the real Skull Reapers or Wrathmongers or something because you like the look of those, but you could almost then get away with like knockoffs for basically everything else easily. Right.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Next up, let's just stay in the demon train. Tzeentch. Let's get them Tzeentchy boys out. Should we just put them down here? Just down in the lower right? That's where they go, right?
Like, yeah. Like I have all of my, Zangor army.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's in boxes. It's waiting to be painted. But I just can't bring myself to do it yet. Like I don't hate myself that much.
It's a very high complexity army. One of the most complex armies to play. Caleb. It is Caleb. Yeah, easy to play. Caleb, you get out of here. No, don't really. We love you, Caleb. But no, do not trust the man who's been playing Nurgle consistently. Or Nurgle, I'm sorry. Who's been playing Tzeentch consistently since 2015 or whatever, right? Like, yeah, they're easy to you, Caleb. You are like, that's like somebody who's, you know, I don't know. It's like asking Tony Hawk how difficult it is to write a half pipe. Yeah, it's not that hard. For him. For me, I'll break my neck about 5 seconds in, right? So, like, they're very complicated. They're also very expensive. It is just a range of expensive options. Costly. Now, there are some good 3D prints and alternative sculpts out there. It exists.
Sure. Let me just bring this point home. So you're telling me that I can play a faction that can summon like $130 models a lot.
Yeah. Base, yeah.
I can get a lot of those every round. Cool. Mm-hmm. Cool. That's where we live then. Got it.
Now that being said, just like with Rage Demons, there are Bird Demon alternative sculpts. I'm not sure if he can... Where's he at? Is he visible? No, I don't think he's visible. He's like on this shelf right here, like behind this post.
Yeah.
But yes, I have a big alternative 3D print Keeper of Secrets guy hanging in there that was way cheaper than the real guy.
Lord change.
Yeah, they are an expensive army. They're a complicated army. We can move on. That's where it goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's round this out. Heed Knights of Slaanesh. Let's finish out the Chaos Quartet here.
At the bottom. I mean, they're maybe underneath Slaves to Darkness. They may be a little bit cheaper than Tzeentch, but not by a lot if they are.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're harder to play. It's annoying. You have to I just think they're one of the more complicated armies to play. Like, maybe I'll put them on the same level. I'll put them on the same level of complexity as Tzeentch. How about that? We'll be nice. I'll get my personal bias out of it, or try to. It's very hard. I just think they're a very, very wacky, complicated army that wants to dance around, and you want to do these sorts of things, and you need to be shooting, and all your kits are expensive, and you know,
and issuing commands to 3 units at a time, and yada. Mm-hmm. Make sure everybody's within range, and
So yeah, they're right down there. They're basically a nightmare army. Okay. Cool. Excuse me. I have 2 of those. I don't know why I have 2 of those. Okay. Next up. Soulblight Gravelords. It's the SBs and the Gs. Where are they going? Where are they going, Tom?
I would say that they are not, at this point, are not easy to play.
Yep, agreed.
because they do require like they do require an attrition mindset and like playing the objectives, and which is not naturally how a lot of people want to play Warhammer, myself included.
Yep.
And so some of it can be relatively cheap. You know, they've gotten 2 years of Battle Force boxes of a lot of the newer ranges.
Yep.
But like, I can't say any army is cheap when I want to go buy, what's the one hero from Curse City, like to supplement my army, and I have to buy
Chadakar. Yeah, sure.
Or no, not Chadakar. What's the Gorslop or whatever.
Oh,
like let's say I want Gorslop,
like
or let's say I want the
Torgilius.
Sure, Torgilius, and you have to fork out $140 for this weird web only hero box, right? Sure. For this stupid, you know, at worst $35 foot hero.
Yeah.
And so, like, to get at the pieces that you want to play most of the time, you're actually going to end up forking a bunch of stupid money out. And so it's actually not as cheap as you might expect. Like, if you want a vampire lord, or you want to run one of the, if you want to run the, what's his face? Yep. Like, you're going to fork out full price for those at this point. Like, there's no way to get a bite at one of those drives.
Sure. Yeah, I put them about I think they're firmly in the middle tier of play complexity. And I've got them maybe.
And they have a lot of units, too.
They do have a lot of units. That is true. That's true. But Soulblight benefits from having a lot of, as you said, past bundles, past deals. There's just like the secondary market for them is massive. Like skeletons, zombies, dire wolves, all your like main grist in the mill, as it were. Yeah. You can often find on the secondary market cheap as chips, or with like 3D prints just out the yang, right? Like that is not anything that you're hard up to find at all. So most of where your money's going to go is, as you said, like into the special stuff. Buying Torgilius off of eBay, that somebody broke him out of a Curse City box, picking up Manfred or something like that, right? Like the Mortarks, you know, that's where most of your cost actually is. And you don't actually need a ton of that stuff. If you're like wanting to do a Blood Knight heavy force, okay, this is just became a different discussion. But again, there are alternative sculpts out there, but still.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you want to have any range, like if you want to do Virkos on one end and Legion of Night or Legion of Blood on the other, like you're gonna have pretty significant price swings.
Sure. Yep. Again, there's another, like all the large armies, you can swing a lot. All the summoning armies are also, you know, can fall into that trap. Yeah. Okay. Seraphon. What are we doing with Seraphon?
I don't care. That's not a real army.
All right, I'll answer Seraphon. Seraphon are a really interesting case because cost-wise, they can be a pretty significant outlay. Because again, the army is pretty big. It has a lot of special pieces you may want or feel like you have to have, like a Slann or Croak himself or stuff like that. They do have, sort of a couple of different box alternatives. There's a lot of older Seraphon, though, that are on the secondary market that still look perfectly fine. Like, if you can find the really old, like the 2 generation ago Saurus, they're fine. They're like derpy, but they're fine. They look better than the 1 generation ago Saurus, which were terrible. And it's weird because play complexity-wise, neither one of them, like, they both have too many things going on, but neither of them are incredibly complicated. Like, they have a lot of rules, but they don't have a ton of complexity. It's just like load. It's just, you got to get a load-bearing wall type of situation, right? Because they have, you know, if you're playing Coalesce, it's like, well, I have a bunch of big stompy dinos and I reduce damage by 1. About the simplest form of the army you can play, right? If you're playing Starborn, it's still not that complicated. You're probably just mortal wound bombing people from Lord Croak or something from the other side of the table, right? So neither one is actually that complicated of a play pattern. It's just there are still some very bad units in the book. There are things that are a little more fiddly, like if you're relying heavily on agrodons, you're like sort of tracking rage, which basically I guess you don't really have to track it. You just don't have it. Just assume you don't have it. And things like that. So to me, they're probably firmly in the middle. There are a lot of 3D prints for Seraphons out there, like a lot. But yeah, like all in all, I think they net out probably in the middle, dipping a little to the right for cost because of some of the newer, bigger, expensive kits. That's where I think they land. So, okay.
Yep.
All right. Hey, welcome, King Cool. Glad to have you. Okay. Caradron Overlords, Tom. Where are they going?
I would say they're expensive, and they have a pretty straightforward playstyle at this point.
I don't know, man. I read that book and it made my brain hurt.
They're in a boat, and you shoot.
I understand, but like when I can withdraw and disengage and like using my things and the cross buffs and all of that.
I mean, it's all like you're in zones and it's fine. Like in general, it's not a difficult army to play. Like I would put it somewhere in the middle.
Chat, what do you say? How complicated are Caradron Overlords? Is this a Caleb playing Tzeentch situation here since Tom's a KO player? Is that what we've got going on? What's everybody else's vote? Okay. I mean, my money, I agree with you. They're quite expensive.
Yeah.
For me, they would sit down here like a little more expensive than Beasts of Chaos at about the same complexity. That's where I think I would put them. Like just bordering on that really hard to play, but like at the very bottom of the middle tier.
I mean, I don't know. That's fine. I don't think that they're hard to play. You have guns and you shoot at things. And then they charge you and you unleash hell and you shoot more.
Okay.
And then you withdraw and you shoot some more.
We got a lot of mid votes, lower middle, complicated. Okay. So yeah, I think this placement feels pretty right based on the consensus of what I'm seeing in the chat here. Maybe something like that. Somewhere in there. Okay. Right on. All right, cities. New cities, Tom. They've been updated in a big way. Where are they falling? Okay. Go ahead.
I would say they're very expensive.
Yeah. Like, if you want all the new stuff. If you want
No, if you want old stuff, it's still very expensive.
Okay.
Because getting enough dwarf units, for example, like there's no easy way, there's no path to that. And
I mean, the path to that, Tom, is called buying old world boxes that release in the next couple weeks.
No.
Because they're going to re-release all those kits, the dwarves and
no.
Well, not that you will get the dark elves because they're not in the old world.
No, but not bundled. Like you're not going to get them bundled.
No, I'm just saying if you want to buy the boxes, like they exist. You're not paying secondary, like inflated prices for them, but they will be commercially available on the shelf. Hammers and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Right, but what I'm saying is that there's no cheap way to that, and you're paying like $60, $70 for 10 models.
Sure.
Like there's no like, and you need like
a lot.
Yeah. Right. There's no easy way to. And so I think actually Cities is one of the more expensive armies right now.
Yep.
And I think that it has a fairly like. I think it has a pretty complex play style, like the issuing commands and like reading the table and understanding what's about to happen and how the other opponent is going to move or what thing you need to issue to what unit. It's like I think it's like it is a higher complexity.
Okay.
Like I really wanted to do that this year, and then I saw Flesh Eater Courts, and I was like, Smash. Like I'm going to do Smash Bat. I'm not going to do high commands.
I tend to agree. I think Cities is somewhere like I place them in between Slaves and Stormcast, like kind of in that space-ish there.
Yep.
And I think that feels right to me. Now there is a lot of secondary market availability, especially for sort of the older models. A lot of 3D prints, humans and gunners and stuff like that. It's not hard to get. But if you want Pontifex, if you want, Talia, if you want, that kind of stuff, all of it like really will ring up a big price tag. right? It's expensive, especially if you want actually the new sculpts, of which there's really not many people with anything that looks like exactly what that looks like. Now your tolerance for sort of proxies could vary that a lot, right? But you're right. And I agree with you on the complexity of the playstyle, like orders and things like that. It actually gets pretty tricky.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's do a fun one. Sons of Behemoth. Okay.
It's high cost, and I say to easy.
Yeah, they are interesting because they sit like here at the basically touching the top of easy to play, but being way over to the right on high cost. Now, let me just state this. At the same time, there are many 3D printable giants. You can go get alternative sculpt giants from like Nolzers and WizKids and stuff like that, right? So if you go buy those guys, they sit here. They are in the top left. They are the easiest army to start and play and collect and paint and everything. Like if instead of going out and buying the actual kits, you just go buy the $20 alternative giant sculpts or get any of the 3D printed giants, right, that are going to run you about the same cost. They drop so hard, so far, so fast to the left. It's less than $100 for the whole army. Easy if you buy those alternative things. Okay. If you buy the retail models, they're way up here because then they're like $190 a piece.
Yep. And you need 4.
You need 4. All right. So, like, let me just state I just want to be super clear that there's no higher dichotomy of cost than with the Sons of Behemoth, because again, from cheapest army to one of the most expensive, they sit at almost opposite ends of the spectrum, depending on whether you buy the real models or just use the proxies. That's it. So, there you go. Okay. Who else we got? Sylvaneth. I'm going to tell you where I'm going to jump. I'm just going to straight shortcut this one. They're way down here on harder to play and quite costly too, being just slightly, they're sitting down in this pile with slaves, Hedonites, and cities. I think they are harder to play than cities because you're tracking a lot of different things, and using strike and fade properly is really hard and all that kind of stuff. They're very complicated to paint often for a lot of the newer models, like the bugs and things like that. The big tree guys are simple, and dryads are simple, but the models are more and more, every new release you get just adds more complicated models like bug riders and crap like that, and the little gossamer butterfly elf archers and stuff, right? And now there is like a decent amount of secondary market availability, especially for like straight tree people stuff. But they also, you've got to buy trees. You're also then buying a bunch of tree sets, right? You're going to need at least 2 full sets of trees on top of your actual troops. And that, because like the minimum you'd want to have at your disposal is kind of 6 wood pieces, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's that simple, right? So not only do they carry a relatively high price, but they also carry a relatively high complexity. Bad starting army, tough to play right. It's a finesse army. Finesse armies are always harder to play, right? Mm-hmm. That's just what it is. Okay, Fire Slayers. Quite expensive.
They are quite expensive. They're not difficult to play-ish. Right. It's circles and pushing forward. Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just close to the right side, upper middle tier of complexity, right? Like lower middle tier of complexity is what I mean. The towards easier to play.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, one of the advantages of Fire Slayers is it's really not a complicated army to pilot. Like it's pretty straightforward. You got some buffs, you got some runes, right? Yes, it's a bunch of cool. Once per game, once per game, once per game, once per game. Yeah, sure. That's funny.
Yeah,
all true.
You just use tokens or use cards or whatever to represent that. Yep.
Like, you're not really tracking that much stuff. The one thing I don't hate about once per game stuff is, you got to remember it, but once you use it, it's done, right?
Yep. It's just resource management.
Yeah, but it's like you have a couple Grimwrath Berserkers, you've got some Hearthguard Berserkers, you've got a couple units of Volkite Berserkers, right? And then
and it can be as simple or as complex to paint as you want it to be.
Right. Yeah. Just
because it's all skin, right?
They are boring to paint, Average Joe asked. No, I don't think so. I think you can do some perfectly fine stuff with them if you like the aesthetic. You can make really beautiful Fire Slayer models.
Like I did a free-handed like lava pattern, like it's like growing out of their runes, right? Like magma pattern on their skin, like a stone skin that's spreading out from their runes, right? To represent the ward save. And that was a wonderful, interesting paint scheme, right? That was really kind of visually gripping. And it was enjoyable because it was all freehand, kind of like free-flowing fun. Like once the base model was done, you just went in and went to work, right? With freehand. So that was really enjoyable. And it was, like their muscles are super well defined, so painting that kind of skin is easier.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Daughters of Cain. Doc.
Ooh.
Tough
they've
one, right?
historically been very expensive.
Yeah.
And I would say that their complexity is middle of the road. They have their armies look a lot today like they did in 2019.
Yeah,
big blocks of troops and pushing.
The funny part is, originally they were far more complex than they are now. It's hard to win with them now because they're like an army that doesn't want that. Like its playstyle does not do anything in the current meta. Like they're very hard to actually win with. But play, they're pretty fine.
Yeah, you just want to push things forward and hit stuff. Big blocks.
Yeah. I think they're a little more complex than Fire Slayers. There's a little bit more management of stuff, that kind of thing. But I think they're a little lower cost than like Fire Slayers or KO or anything like that. Time has given us more secondary market availability, more 3D print options, things like that since their original release. So. Okay. How are we defining expensive? A kind of amorphous understanding of like what would it be to buy the whole thing at retail, but then also factoring in like secondary market availability, 3D print alternative sculpts, all that kind of stuff. Like what's that is, and it's just kind of all amorphously in a pool together. All right, last one, Tom.
We have not been doing paint difficulty.
No, we haven't. Yeah. Okay, last one. Skaven. Day Rats.
They're on the bottom.
Yeah, they are very complicated to play. Yes,
they are because like here's the deal, like the fact that the winning list plays completely like doesn't play the game, it plays some other game, right? Which I mean, like it is in that sense, it's just playing a variant version of my like Nurgle like wall list, right? But it's just a different type of set of wall.
Yep.
It's not an Unkillable Chaos Warriors, it's warded towers.
Yeah, sure.
So in that sense, it's not difficult.
But that's of course not gonna. Again, that how long does that survive?
That's not an intuitive. Like when you look at that book, it's not what you think about, right? Like that is a designer, like meta built list. Like it is built to our meta. And so I like it is a very difficult list of army to play, and in general, like it is not a cheap army to build. Like there's a lot there.
There's a decent amount of stuff still out on the secondary market. There's quite a lot of 3D prints available. Like because
Echo
this is
Doom
such a
box, like that was a wonderful box that had a number of wonderful sculpts available of both Clan Rats and Storm Vermin and Towers, right? Like that was like the bulk of that crazy list is all available for free in that stuff.
Sure. This is another like massive range though, right? That's setting on a refresh. Like honestly, right now, I think this thing is way down here with like Slanesh or something like that. It's so many kits. It's so like if you were trying to actually collect this army, It's so many kits. It's so many traps. It's so complicated to play. It's maybe one of the most complicated armies to play in the game right now, if not the most complicated, honestly. Because you're made of paper. You can't win on normal terms. You have to be sacrificing your pieces exactly the wrong time. Let me tell you a quick story. I'll make this very fast. I was playing against new FEC. Okay? I made one wrong move with a Skaven hero I had. And I was like, oh, yep, he's dead, and that collapses that whole side of the board. Everything fell apart. Because I made one wrong. I redeployed wrong. That was it. Right? And, I lost a piece at a time I couldn't afford to lose a piece. And that whole side of the board collapsed. Because I lost the hero. Right? Because I didn't notice that I was redeploying him wrong. That's it. That's the kind of... There's no forgiveness with Skaven. You make one wrong move, you're dead. You lost your stuff. It's gone. So it's really hard to play that army. I love it. I love the army. But it is super complicated to play well. That's it. You make one wrong move with one hero, your whole army just, it's gone. Because it's all Bravery 5 morons that just disappear. If you don't have the right support for them at the right moment. It becomes trash if it loses its power pair, and so on and so on and so on. Right? Set up one model, ambush into the wrong spot, get your things accidentally cleaned up, roll some bad dice once, you're done. Okay. Yep. So there you go. Pick up your choice, mate. There you go. That's the breakdown. So here we go. I guess if you're starting out, your answer should be your sort of low cost, easiest to play options are ogres, flesh eaters, night haunt, bone reapers, or 3D printing some Sons of Behemoth. And then at the next wave out, you have Nurgle, Orc War Clans, and Khorne. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes sense. That's a great place to live.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay. How important is play well, and what does play well mean? How easy is it to actually play the army and give a good game, to utilize its rules at your disposal to actually play a competitive game, right? The more complicated, the more knobs that turn in a more fiddly fashion, the harder that becomes. All right. Expanding the force. I think in general, Tom, we can talk about this real quick. This shouldn't take too long.
I was say, do we have another chart to do?
No, we don't. We do not. Okay. I just wanted to have a quick note. Do you always, this was just an interesting sort of philosophy thing. Couple quick questions. Do you start with a 2K list? Or a 1K list or something like that? How do you start? And what do you consider your milestones?
How do I start collecting?
Yeah, and what are your what's your milestones? What do you say, okay, I've got something functional now? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I aim for 1,000 points and then 2,000 points. I often will have a 1,500 point stopover. And so what normally happens is that I build 1,000 points, I take that 1,000 and I build a 1,500 that has some flex in the 1,000.
Yep.
That lets me move around. And then once I've done that, I take that and go, okay, what can I utilize here? Then the hope is that of that 15, bulk of that will cover my 2,000 points. That's often how I will, I'll conceptualize. Now, if I see a good deal, like FEC, when I decided to pull the trigger because there was so much out in the market, because so much had not been scooped up yet, used and stuff, I did the math, looked at what it would take. He's like, okay, I was gonna buy the new box, cool. But then I was like, well, I want a Marrow scroll, so I need to get a hold of a Jarian's box.
Yep.
And then I did the math, and I'm like, okay, well, I may never use a second Marrow scroll. I might, but it's very possible that I would only ever use one. But when I did the math and looked at everything else, I knew that I was going to want at least 18 horrors. I knew I was going to want at least 18 horrors. So that I could run the variants of those two, those two extremes. I already had 4 like starter boxes. And so then I'm like, okay, I'm only a couple steps basically all the permutations of all army by buying like these handfuls.
Yep.
And so now with the new launch, the only thing that I'm waiting on
Usharon.
Usharon. I'm waiting on the Judge, the Gourmand, and I'm waiting on probably one more box of Knights. I don't think I would do heavy expand, but I could do a solid 6 pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have 3, so another
6 feels
3.
right. Yeah.
6 feels like the right number.
Yep.
And at that point, like I feel pretty good about basically everything in that army. Like I have, like, now that said, like I could go more gore. So I only have 1 box, but I could convert a bunch of the stupid ghouls or the aberrant ghoul kings that are just like lunging out. I have a bunch of small wings. That'll be an easy conversion to a bunch of bonus gore wardens.
Sure.
So at that point, like I did the math and I'm like, for a little bit more right now, I could have a permutation of everything in the entire army.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. So I pulled the trigger on that, and almost everything's built at this point. Most things are based and painted, or based, and I'll basically have one more wave of priming when the new models come in, and then I'll have. So sometimes I figure out what the math is, and if it's not bad and there's good deals on the market, I'll scoop everything, so I never have to buy another model again.
Yep. I think I have the exact same milestones as you, which is 1K, so we can do a team tournament, right? Or a doubles event. Team event, doubles event, whatever you want to call it. And then 1,500, because we often play 1,500 point games at here, like in
like multiplayer games.
Games. You do full 2,000, so I have a lot of 1,500 point availability. And then 2K is ultimately when I'm like, okay, I can. That's like my milestone where I can go, okay, I have an army. And I have this note here about understanding the meta cadence and why you're playing the army. I think the trap you never want to fall into is building exactly like some current meta list, especially if it's a skew list, because it's so easy for those things to get broken. Like never just if you're starting out, go out and buy like I'm going to buy 18 sharks or whatever, right?
I'm going to buy the exact 2,000 point list I want to play, because here's what happens: you do that, and by the time it's painted, you can't actually play the thing that you painted.
Right. Exactly. And so, like, I think you do have to go a little over, right? You have to have some flex and options in there. So it's not like you stop just at 2K. I think ultimately you feel happy when you've reached somewhere around like 2,500, 3K of like just raw total. And that gives you the flex inside your list.
Yep. I would agree with that. And so then like that, like once I like to get a playable like variable, I normally hit about 3K. Yeah. And then the next stop obviously is what do I need to run permutations of?
Yeah. Some of that I've left behind because there are like just units that like my dock army is about 3,000 points exactly, and I'll never expand it. Like I'm happy with it. Right.
Yep.
Because I don't have that many sisters or witch elves. I don't need them. I don't care about them.
Yeah, and you would never. Yeah, that's not something.
Right. But I have like tons of snakes, of different snakes, right? Because I love the snakes and stuff like that. I have multiples of the big chariots and things like that because I love that stuff. And, so like that's, to me, that's, that's where I'm like, I got to that point and I said, I'm done. I'm done with this army. I have everything I would want with it. I'm good. Like it'll vary around in points. I'll build different lists with it. I have enough flex to compensate for up or down, and I'm good. I have done what I came here to do, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like with my Slanesh force or my Skaven force, when can I call it done? Never. Like I've continued to add new models forever and ever and ever to those forces because they're like my primary armies that I love, right? So I'm always happy to add more stuff to them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like I hear that, but what I would say is this: like, it can hit certain points where you just simply would never realistically add more to that. Like, and what I mean by that is this: like, I was doing the math and realized that like, I have hit a point where I am over in Nighthawk, where like at like there's just no permutation, there's no work. I'm going to add more of these things.
Sure.
And so like I have a box of hex. And I looked at that and went, I'm never, like, I have 20. I'm never going to run
Yeah.
than
Sure.
army.
You can hit a
than
point
that.
when you go, and that's just it. That's the dock side, right? Where you can hit this point where you're like, I have everything I would conceivably like to run, especially in smaller forces. You can get there a lot sooner. My Iron Jaws, another army I love, I didn't add a freaking model to, basically, because I had everything I wanted in the permutations I wanted. Again, about 3,000 points. It's a 7 War Skull army. Didn't need anything else. I was happy, right? So I didn't add it to it until literally they released more stuff for the
big
army.
thing. Yep.
Right. Okay. So like, to me, it's about setting those milestones and then being able to use those things in interesting ways. So like that 1K, 2K, 3K milestones. And then I think you can stop at a certain point and just go, yeah, that's good. I'm happy enough with where I have. I don't really feel like I'm going to ever need to expand this thing any farther for now. You might return to it years and years later, like when they do some expansion or something, but you don't need to.
Yeah.
Okay. And then here we go. Let's talk challenges, Tom. Okay. What do you do when you lose steam in a project? So I want to close out, Tom, here with just the last few minutes with us sharing some advice with people about powering through. Okay? What do you do when you've lost steam on a project? You're trying to fight your way through, but you
define
just can't go.
Lost steam. And what I mean by that is that
you're painting the army and you don't want to paint the army anymore. You don't find yourself painting the army. You think about it and you go, I'll vacuum my house instead. Right?
So if that's the case, then what that means is, for me, is I lost interest in an army. It's no longer, or it's not going to be able to perform in the meta, right? Like in a way that I want it. And if that's the case, it goes on the shelf.
Sure.
Like I don't, like at this point, I don't ever, and I don't, like, to be very clear, when I say I shelve it, I don't mean that I'm never going to touch it again. I put corn on the shelf, and I will pull corn back off. Like that will happen, right?
Sure.
But I've learned to adopt a longer game of a year to 2 years per army, and just understanding that, like, I'll come back to it when I feel ready to do that and when the meta. And so learning how to be I learn how to just be content to put things away. I don't need to sell them. I don't need to do that. I'll box it up and I'll come back to it. That's the first thing. Okay. The second thing is sometimes you just need to breathe. And when I need a breather, I know Vince has a bunch of different techniques for this. When I need a breather, I'll often jump to terrain.
Mm-hmm.
Terrain is one of those things that I always kind of like refresh on. I love doing terrain stuff, and so I always enjoy that. Or endless spells. Endless spells is another great one that you can and just bang out and get a different technique, a different color scheme, a different whatever, and be okay. Yep. If you're just tired of doing the thing. But I learned this technique from you is I will often alternate units.
Yep.
By doing like I am a bulk painter first, and so like I will primarily put most of my energy into the things that I don't want to.
That's right.
And so
start with the things you hate the most first. Save the centerpieces and the big models and the fun models for the end. Eat your meat before you have any pudding.
Yep. And so like for my ghouls, like I'm doing, like that's what on my 100 points, that's what I'm starting at is 40 ghouls.
Yep.
And so, and actually like I'm enjoying the 40 ghouls, so it's not been a slog, right? Like that's the fears that it would be a slog. It hasn't been a slog. But I'm knocking those out first, and I've taken my Morbeg Knights and just set them in the corner. Like I'm not even doing like base coat details right now because of how complex they are. Like I've been doing like batch painting all of the hair and the bone and all that on the entire army except for the Morbeg. I've pushed them off completely. Yep. And I'm doing, for me, because it hasn't been bad, I'm batch painting everything. But oftentimes what I would do something like this. I would do ghouls first, highest model count, most like tedious, most like mindless. And then once I get like my first big unit done, then I'll jump and do a hero.
Yep.
And then I'll jump back and do a moderate size unit. And then I'll do a hero. And so that has you like painting different things, and the speed of completion changes. And so that's always super helpful. Like after a slog, you want something that you can knock out to and see real progress.
Agreed.
And feel like, yeah, it took me, these 20 models were 160 points. Like that's, in a 1,000-point army, that's like just over, it's 15% of my army. But then I do one model, that's another 15%.
Right.
Right. And so then, and I'm moving back and helps the rhythm of doing that. And so like I would think long and hard to plan out like of your 1,000
what you're
points,
gonna do when. Yeah.
What you're gonna do when. What is the first thing that you do? What do you not want to do? Right. And then the things that don't matter, you want to start on those things. Like if you're batch painting, because you need to get your technique right. You need to get your highlighting right.
Sure.
You need to get your scheme impeccable so that when you start hitting those heroes that matter, your freehand is on point, right? Your highlights are on point.
Yeah.
No one's going to see that ghoul that you experimented on a wash and did the wrong wash on, right? No one's going to notice that in, like in your 100 ghouls that you have on the table or however many ghouls. And so don't be afraid to experiment on those early stages and to do your batch painting and then kind of move into some of the detailed stuff. And again, alternate your rhythms. Those are the things that I do to make sure that I never hit those stall outs.
Yep. Absolutely. Awesome. Agree with all of that completely. So I'm going to rapid fire mine, and you hit a bunch of them already, which is 1, plan out your points. Think about your units you want to paint. Paint the biggest, most unfun things first. Save the singular things, the small single characters, the fun centerpiece models, stuff like that. Save those for the end or as intermediate rewards for doing the larger, tougher thing. So, plan that order. If you find yourself burnt in the middle, you mentioned terrain, great. Grab a random model for something you have no intention to play that whole army and just paint it for fun. Paint a Warcry warband or an Underworlds warband or a warband for another game. Maybe you're playing Majestic 13 or Space Station Zero and you got to get your new crew there. Available now from Snarling Badger Studios. Check it out. Links in the description. If you're looking for some fun skirmish games to have cool painting projects to break up your army stuff. But like you can, but break it up with like a small warband or something like that, right? You mentioned terrain again. Yep, totally agree. As well, you can also just step away and do something else that isn't painting, like do a bunch of assembly for a week.
Yep.
Right.
I love just building.
Yeah, go to an assembly and filing and cleaning phase where you're just getting everything together on a force. That's fine too, right? That's still absolutely making forward progress. It's just a lot less stressful and annoying, and it can sometimes reset your internal thing.
Bit sorting, really important. Don't let your like half-built sprues pile up to fill a closet. Yep. I've seen people do that before. Don't. Like, when you hit a stall out point, go get your clippers, clip all of your bits.
Everything off, and then sort it. Yeah, no,
and you know what you can even do if you're willing to like put a little bit of time and energy in is trim the little like clip points off and clean mold lines on your bits. I know that sounds utterly ridiculous, right? But just a little bit of time when you clip it and doing that. If you get the little sander that Ninjon talked, the little sander pen, mine should be here this week. Nice. Of cleaning off those mold lines and stuff. That is super, super easy to do. It's fairly mindless. You can put some TV on or whatever, and it's making progress in the hobby.
Yep, agreed. W. Husk said, I frequently paint those cheap and simple D&D minis when feeling burnt out with the current project. Yep, exactly. Yep, perfect. That kind of stuff. Also, so you could do a different type of thing, like assembly, like you mentioned, like cleaning stuff up, right? Paint different stuff. You can also, if you know you're the person who wants to work with deadlines, have a deadline. Sign up for a tournament or an event or something like that. If you work well with deadlines. If you don't do that. Know whether you're a person who works with some kind of deadline well or not,
Nothing motivates me more than signing up.
Yeah, like for Tom, having tournaments is why he gets armies painted. For you, that just might be undue stress. So, like, know which type of person you are, right? And then act accordingly. Okay.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah, get out your board game minis. Absolutely, everybody's got board games
Yep.
and minis unpainted. Like, let's be honest, get out some of them, something like that, and pay and do those. Len says, I watch you guys when I'm burnt out. Hey, all right. Hopefully we can get you some motivation there, Len. Absolutely. So, I think all of that's fine. I think all of that's a good thing. You can also just work on 2 projects at once. If you know that you're not going to have the steam to get through one army. Some people work best with 2 different army projects. So, like, do a unit from this army, a unit from that army, a unit from this army, and another unit from this army, and then some character from this army, and then so on, right? And you're kind of just, like, building it up. I most of the time have 2 projects going on. Now, for me, that's like a display painting project and something to do with an army, right? And so I can get both of those tastes at once, right? I can get the sweet and the salty or whatever, right? I don't know, whatever.
Mine is normally building and painting.
Sure.
So normally my 2 projects are I'm building some army and I'm painting some army. And if I need a break from one, I'll jump to building for a day or an evening or whatever, and then I'll jump back to painting to get into.
Yep, exactly. So all of those strats can work out. See what you can do is my answer. Like, there's always options. Don't feel a failure. Everybody hits those points, is what I'm trying to say. I've hit it. Tom's hit it. Every hobbyist I know has hit it. Period. It will happen. It's not about ever getting to a point where you don't hit those walls anymore. It's about having the strategies in place in your hobby that you can overcome them. That's it. Okay. Cool. Very good. All right. Well, Tom, thank you, buddy. That was a good show. I hope we gave some people some interesting information and helpful stuff there. For all of you out there who are watching, hey, if you haven't hit like yet, now's the perfect time to do it. Subscribe, do all those things that make all those dings. It helps other people find the show. If you want to support the show, there's lots of ways you can do so. There's a merch store down below. As I mentioned, Uncle Adam and I's games are down there. You can pick up one of those. We'd love it if you checked out our games. If you're looking for maybe a small, fun side project, a good skirmish game from Vince and Uncle Adam could be exactly what the doctor ordered. I just finished the draft of basically at the new year of our next game coming out this year, and Tom's going to start development very soon. So I'm sure he's excited about that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Look forward to this one, folks. But there's also a Patreon down there, which, of course, is focused on hobby. Exactly this. Getting that stuff painted, getting review and feedback, and taking your next step on your hobby journey. And we appreciate it if you support it in any way, including just clicking those buttons. Hey, what's up, Evan? Evan's here. I see him over there in the chat. Evan, I hope you're doing well, buddy. But at any rate, I thank all of you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Remember, come back next week for Old World Part 1 of I don't know how many, where we talk about the Old World and the game and what it is. So we're going to talk through the rules and stuff like that. It's a big book. I don't know how I'm going to review it, but we're going to do it somehow. So, as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.
Good luck.
Yeah.